Chapter 1077. The surrounding reapers were stunned, and their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. That's not right. That kind of large-scale halo was obviously centered around him. Why is he not injured? That's right. I just saw that he was hit, but he was still fine. How is this possible? If the halo could severely injure the three captains, it must be able to injure him too. Humph. Ignorant and inexperienced. I heard recently that the members of the other divisions are saying that the captain of the 7th division is a monster. Is he really a monster? I've also heard this rumor. Head Captain Yamamoto's face turned ugly when he heard these discussions. Cold light condensed in his eyes as he stared at Dustless. He seemed to have thought of something as he gritted his teeth and said, Kenpachi Ghost Yen Cheng was also killed by number 96 Hado. Is this related to you? Dustless did not deny it as he slightly moved his sore body. That's right. In order to become the captain of the 11th division, I did kill him in Hueco Mundo. It just so happened that that guy didn't like me, and I didn't like him, so I just killed him in Hueco Mundo. You bastard! Head Captain Yamamoto's eyes were about to burst out of his sockets. High-density hot Ryatsu erupted from his body. Although he did not do anything, a large area of the void behind him was strangely burning, and the ground was turned into black charcoal. Suppressing the surging killing intent in his heart, Old Man Yamamoto suddenly thought of the captain who had recently met with an accident. He shouted in a deep voice, Captain Shiba should also be killed by you. This old man knows his character. He would never do something like turning into a void. I did injure him. In order to fight with me, he lost all his Ryatsu power. However, it is an indisputable fact that he turned into a void. Dustless said casually. He had done so many bad things that he could not even count them. What's your purpose? This old man thinks that I have treated you well. Since the establishment of the Godai 13, you are the only one who joined the Reapers within a year and became the captain. Head Captain Yamamoto roared. His suppressed voice was like the sign of a volcanic eruption. If Dustless did not give him a reasonable explanation, the sharpness of Ryujin Jaka would definitely burn the entire Soul Society. Stop lying. Wuchen snorted and sneered, there are only 2 reasons why you promoted me so quickly. First, Soul Society can't just ignore a stranger who is as strong as a captain. Second, you want me to be the captain so that you can monitor me better. This will cause a lot of conflicts in the Godai 13. Many people don't like me, so they will turn their attention to me. This is a covert surveillance. So what? Seeing that his purpose was exposed by Dustless, Head Captain Yamamoto still did not give up. If you are willing to be loyal to Soul Society, I even wanted to pass the position of head captain to you. Head Captain Yamamoto's shocking words made all the captains look at each other. The head captain passed it down to me. What a surprise. Dustless's calm eyes surged with ripples. He had indeed not expected this. Soon after, he said indifferently, unfortunately, my goal is the exact opposite, to kill the Spirit King and replace him as the ruler of the world. Hearing this, Yamamoto, the barrel of gunpowder that had been accumulating for a long time, finally exploded. Boom boom boom, a vast spiritual pressure spread across the entire Soul Society. The originally clear sky suddenly turned into a scorching sun. Head Captain Yamamoto's spiritual pressure spread across the entire Soul Society. A giant flaming sword appeared above the heads of all creatures, which could easily end the lives of all creatures. Creatures were going extinct, rivers had dried up, and all life in Soul Society was facing an unprecedented catastrophe. Head Captain Yamamoto had lived for thousands of years, but the number of times he used Sanpakuto could be counted on one hand. The reason was that the power of Ryujin Jaka was too terrifying. It was a double-edged sword. If he used it for a long time, it could destroy the entire Soul Society. As for the number of times he used Bankai, it was even less. In his long life, Head Captain Yamamoto only used Bankai to deal with Yawatch. You treacherous and evil man, do you understand what you are saying? Old Yamamoto said as he pulled out Ryujin Jaka from its scabbard. He was so angry that the veins on his forehead bulged. Facing the monstrous Head Captain Yamamoto, Dustless said without fear, "Of course I understand what I am saying. Old man, don't be so stubborn. Your thinking is too rigid. After I become Soul King, your Shinigami will have to thank me." Soul King didn't have the slightest combat power. They were extremely protected by Soul Society. Squad Zero almost never left their side. And the benefits of Dustless becoming Soul King were self-evident. It meant that Squad Zero would be liberated and wouldn't have to stay in the Soul King Palace forever. At the same time, Dustless himself was a top fighter. It was almost impossible to kill him. Why would this old man trust a traitor like you? If you want me to trust you, go to Avicii Hell and stay there for 100,000 years. Old Yamamoto's compassion flashed by. Although he was very tempted by Dustless's proposal, he rejected it without hesitation because it was impossible. Soul King couldn't be replaced. There was only one from the beginning to the end. Once he died, Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, including the modern world, would completely collapse. Even if Dustless really had the ability to take down the Spirit King, Old Man Yamamoto and Team Zero did not dare to take the risk. If they were not careful, it could lead to the end of the three realms, the modern world, Hueco Mundo, and Soul Society. Soul Society couldn't afford such a heavy price. Shinigami couldn't afford it. It was heavier than annihilating Godei 13. Chapter 1078. Yamamoto's anger spread throughout Soul Society. He originally thought that Dustless was dissatisfied with Soul Society, but he didn't expect him to target Soul King. This has crossed Yamamoto's bottom line, and he couldn't tolerate it. Boom boom boom. Surging spiritual pressure burst out unscrupulously, wanting to annihilate the entire Soul Society. The sharpness of Ryujin Jaka was beyond the imagination of the world, especially now that Head Captain Yamamoto was still angry. Its power was even more terrifying. TSK. As expected of the strongest Sanpakuto, and this is under the condition of not releasing it. If it's released, the strongest Sanpakuto that can destroy the world is worthy of its name. Dustless sighed with emotion, his words were filled with desire and passion, and he made up his mind, such a good thing will increase my power to another level. I'll find time to go to the system to train Old Man Yamamoto and snatch his Ryujin Jaka. This exaggerated Zanpakuto could be called a perfect existence, the only flaw was that Ryujin Jaka was too powerful, and it could collapse the world with a raise of the hand. Old Man Yamamoto, leave this guy to us captains, you'd better go and watch the battle, otherwise, Soul Society will be destroyed before the battle begins. Shunsui resisted the blazing Ryatsu and approached Yamamoto. Yes, Captain. All the captains nodded. Yamamoto's Ryatsu didn't distinguish between friend and foe, and the target was not only Dustless, but also the captains. He didn't severely injure Dustless, but defeated them first. This joke wasn't funny at all. It's not too late for you to go up when we can't do it. Shunsui suggested, looking at Dustless with murderous eyes. His good friend, Jushiro Yukitake, was almost instantly killed by Dustless. Jushiro Yukitake, who was already weak and sickly, was in an especially bad condition, and now he was only gasping for breath. Well, you all besiege this man together. It's best if you can capture him alive. I have some questions to ask him. If you can't, kill him on the spot. Yamamoto extinguished the violent Ryatsu all over his body, and said in a deep voice. You bunch of trash want to deal with me. Dustless sneered again and again. He looked at the captains with contempt and said sarcastically, to deal with you captain-level minions, I'll give you both a handicap. His arrogant voice was like rolling thunder, spreading through the entire drifting Soul Street, the entire quiet Soul Courtyard, and the entire Soul Society. Ha ha ha. In that case, you can go to hell now, my former Sword 8. A crazy and ferocious smile came from behind, and Dustless suddenly looked up. A man with a burnt body stood up, holding a Zanpakuto full of sawtooth, and rushed towards Dustless. It was the current captain of the 11th Division, Zaraki Kenpachi. How disappointing. I thought you'd make some progress, but it seems like I was wrong. A beast like you will never be enlightened. Glancing at Zaraki, Dustless ignored him. The spiritual pressure hidden in his body burst out for the first time since he came to Soul Society. Boom boom boom. Boundless golden light burst out with endless overbearingness. The void began to distort, and cracks began to appear on the ground. Everyone felt a tingling pain on their skin. This guy's spiritual pressure. What kind of joke is this? This is far from being comparable to captain-level Ryatsu. Shunsui said in disbelief, and immediately saw the cruel smile on Dustless's face, and thought to himself, could it be that this guy's spiritual pressure can be increased? Shunsui, who felt something was wrong, quickly exclaimed, and suddenly shouted at the Shinigami behind him, "Get out of here, this guy is far beyond the Shinigami dimension." Idiot, it's too late. Hearing this, Dustless curled his lips in disdain, and increased the spiritual pressure in his body. Boom boom boom. The rookie Grim Reapers in the surroundings exploded one after another. Their bodies turned into a bloody mist, and they were directly crushed to death by the violent spiritual pressure. Only Rukia, Matsumoto Ranju, and Hinamori were safe and sound. This was the result of Dustless deliberately going easy on them. TSK, using spiritual pressure to injure those rookies is nothing, your opponent is me. Zaraki curled his lips in disdain and immediately ran again at an extremely fast speed. Boom boom boom. Zaraki didn't hesitate to take off his blindfold, and a vast amount of spiritual pressure began to erupt, and the Shinigami who were affected by it vomited blood. Who is this bastard helping? When the captains saw this, they cursed Zaraki Kenpachi and secretly scolded him. Idiot, I don't even need to fight with someone like you who only knows how to kill. Seeing this, Wu-Chen sneered again and again. He stared at Zaraki, and a long-lost mysterious power in his body quietly erupted like a flash flood. His boundless might was not inferior to spiritual pressure. Unlike spiritual pressure, the moment his spiritual pressure erupted, the distorted space was instantly torn apart by the tyrannical power like a mirror. Caw caw caw. This aura fell on Zaraki's body. Zaraki's expression changed drastically, and he immediately began to slow down. He was like a tortoise crawling, and his whole body directly crushed the ground. What's this momentum? The captains looked at Dustless in disbelief, and it was difficult for them to breathe. Their bodies instantly became 100 times heavier, and it was extremely difficult for them to move. Zaraki was directly crushed by Dustless's momentum, and his whole body was half kneeling on the ground, sweating all over, and he could only look up at Dustless who was close at hand. It was impossible for him to move an inch, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of surrender in his heart. After the fusion of Houshiku Haki and spiritual pressure, the power is naturally unprecedented. Seeing this scene, Dustless's performance was mediocre, and there was no sadness or joy. The so-called captains were a group of trash. Destroying them was not worth being proud of. Chapter 1079. Zaraki Kenpachi was aghast as he looked at Dustless who was close at hand. He felt a huge sense of frustration in his heart. It was extremely difficult for him to make even an inch of progress. His entire body was bleeding. This huge deterrent suppressed him tightly, and it was 100 times more difficult than usual to breathe. Bastard, how is this possible? He has been a Shinigami for a year, how can his Ryatsu be so strong? Aizen stared at Dustless with unwillingness in his heart, and his eyes were dozens of times bigger than usual. Not only him, all the captain-level Shinigami looked extremely ugly, staring at Dustless with stunned eyes, and their faces turned red and white. Recalling Wu Chen's harsh words from before, their faces flushed red. "I'll give you both arms and legs." Even after half a day, this sentence was still in everyone's ears, like a thorn in everyone's heart. Looking at that thin body, everyone felt extremely incompetent. They were all captains, but there was a huge gap between them. This guy, no, I have to save them. Otherwise, the confidence of the captains will be crushed. Head Captain Yamamoto pulled out his Zanpakuto without hesitation, and the fire once again descended to the world, confronting Wu Chen. The momentum of the two men each occupied half of the sky. Yamamoto's expression changed, and he released his Zanpakuto. All things in the world turned to ashes. Ryujin Jaka. Ryujin Jaka's body extended a blazing flame, and the power was extremely terrifying. Dozens of kilometers away, one could feel the restless Ryatsu of Old Man Yamamoto's body. Sure enough, if I don't use other abilities and only use the power of Shinigami, I'm afraid the one who will lose in the end will be me. Looking at Head Captain Yamamoto with an indifferent expression, Wu Chen had a clear understanding of his strength. Humph. With a grunt, Head Captain Yamamoto didn't appreciate it. He raised his hand and a powerful flame attack swept toward Wu Chen like a mountain pressing down on him. Fire-burning castle. In an instant, the sky around Dustless turned fiery red, and the surrounding air was impenetrable. The blazing flames formed a perfect wall of heat, trapping Dustless within. Phew! The flame barrier cut off Dustless's aura, and all the captains breathed a sigh of relief. The earth-shattering pressure also disappeared. These two fellows. If both of them can be seriously injured, that would be great. Aizen Sosuke's face was black as he clenched his fists. He never thought he would be so weak. Facing these two beasts, he wasn't their opponent. You guys should rest for a while. He can't break through the burning city wall. He actually walked out. How is this possible? Before Old Man Yamamoto's voice fell, Shuinsue's exclamation resounded. Dustless walked out of the flames as if nothing had happened, completely unscathed. You want to trap me with this kind of attack? Seems like the head captain likes to joke too. Dustless disdainfully curled his lips. His body was still emitting light, and his clothes were clean. Obviously, he didn't suffer any injuries. How is this possible? How did he do it? Yamamoto lost his calm, and his voice was trembling. Looking up, the flames from the burning city wall kept attacking Dustless, penetrating his body. Unfortunately, the effect was minimal. Dustless's body was flowing with golden light, and the damaged parts were repaired. His face wasn't red, and he wasn't out of breath. He was healthy and lively. That's not right. This guy just used the number 96 Hato, cremation. Isn't that a Hato sacrifice? How come he's also fine? Shunsui realized that something was wrong. These words stunned all the captains. Only then did they realize that Dustless was fine, and there were no traces of burns. Idiot, of course I'm fine. That's just a small injury, it's nothing. Hearing this, Dustless was as calm as a breeze. The Jubi's physique could repair all physical attacks. Scatter, Senbon Sakura. The sky was filled with cherry blossoms, thousands of them, almost covering the entire void. No matter what kind of monster you are, if you're attacked by countless blades at the same time, you can only turn into a skeleton in the end. Kumu Baya controlled thousands of cherry blossoms to attack. Everywhere they went, they were almost crushed into pieces. It was a mess. These beautiful cherry blossoms blotted out the sky, but in reality, every single one of them was a sharp blade. As long as one touched them, one would be scratched. The disastrous consequences of being attacked by hundreds of millions of blades at the same time were self-evident. Turn into a skeleton. Stop being so self-righteous. The spiritual pressure in his body was surging. Dustless didn't care. It was wishful thinking to think that such a flashy attack could hit him. Under the shocked gaze of all the captains, Dustless ignored the cherry blossoms in the sky. Instead, he was humming a horrifying tune. Pft, pft, pft. The cherry blossom blades cut Dustless's body back and forth, but it didn't have much effect. The elemental transformation directly repaired it. After a long time, they didn't even touch Dustless's body. On the other hand, Kumubaya, who was controlling a large number of cherry blossoms, was panting from exhaustion. Everyone, attack together. This treacherous criminal must be captured today. A group of captains pounced on Dustless. Each of them displayed their skills. The sky was filled with the ability to annihilate Dustless. It's about time. Dustless suddenly laughed secretly. He turned a deaf ear to the various attacks around him. Any physical attack was repaired by the elemental transformation. At the same time, Dustless looked at his chest. There was a gem embedded there that was shining brightly. It was the Hogyoku. The endless release of spiritual pressure before was actually intentional. It was to awaken the Hogyoku. Now, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to test the effects of the Hogyoku. Chapter 1080. This is the characteristic of Hogyoku. Only by wasting all the Ryatsu in the body will the Hogyoku transfer its own Ryatsu to the host. Hado 88, Flying Dragon Strikes the Thief. Wuchen didn't avoid the thick flash of light. He chose to fight back. Although the elemental transformation could ignore any physical attack, he didn't have that kind of special hobby of being hit by others. The Ryatsu in his body surged. Dustless opened his mouth slightly, and a huge flash whistled out. Hado 88, Flying Dragon Strikes the Thief. The same Hado was released by different people, naturally the power was different. The golden flash easily tore the blue light and destroyed it. How is this possible? They are all captains, how can the difference in strength be so big? The newly appointed captain of the 10th Division, Higashiya Toshiro, said with an ugly face, and at the same time, he didn't hesitate to release his Zanpakuto. Bankai, Daiguren Hirinmaru. The Ryatsu surged several times, and the atmosphere instantly condensed. Higashiya Toshiro swung his Zanpakuto, and a cold light shot out, and the light was destroyed. Such a dangerous person, for the safety of Soul Society, we must suppress him. Higashiya Toshiro said sternly. Dustless gave him too much pressure, like a captain-level Shinigami meeting a novice, he can only be crushed. For the safety of Soul Society. You captains are really great, I'm ashamed of myself. There was a ripple in the void, Dustless crossed the layers of the void, and in an instant, he subdued Higashiya Toshiro, and the flash in his hand for a long time was blasted behind him. Laser. The straight flash slanted out, and under everyone's surprise, it penetrated Higashiya Toshiro. Puchi. A huge scorched hole suddenly appeared on Higashiya Toshiro's body, his pupils turned white, and he looked at the wound in disbelief, and fell to the ground unwillingly. Captain Higashiya. The Shinigami shouted worriedly, and looked at Dustless with a particularly weak gaze. What kind of monster is this guy? Captain-level Shinigami are like children in front of him, he can kill them with a raise of his hand. Some of the novice Shinigami who were not afraid of death looked at Dustless standing in the void, and couldn't help but tremble, and some even wet their pants. You. Everyone, don't act rashly. Jingle Chunshue's face was full of caution and gloominess. He gave a few glances to the other captains, indicating that they should besiege Dustless together and not fight him alone. However, no matter what, there is always a hothead. Oh. Is this time you are the vanguard, Ai-kun? Higashiya Toshiro. Duelist Shinigami Sun Level Shinigami. Toshiro Shinigami Shinigami Toshiro. Shinigami. He naturally heard Dustless's sarcasm and chose to retort. Captain Dustless, you said that you can defeat us without using your hands and feet, but it seems that you went back on your words. Dustless didn't deny it, but said meaningfully. Do you know what it means when a butcher picks up a gun to snipe his prey? Captain Aikuen. Aikuen was stunned when he saw Dustless's evil smile. He was thinking about Dustless's meaning. It means that he already thinks that it's time to kill his prey, so he won't hold back. After that, Dustless turned into a storm and rushed towards Aizen Sosuke. Due to his terrifying Ryatsu, a large amount of golden light condensed behind him and rushed towards Aizen Sosuke. Dustless's every step distorted the void with his rhythm. He didn't need to use any technique, he just used his Ryatsu to suppress Aikuen. Is this guy crazy? He'll be finished if he uses up his Ryatsu. All the captains were dumbfounded as they looked at the sky that had been dyed gold. They all breathed their last with a gulp sound. This kind of desperate play had shocked everyone. Humph. This speed is just a so-so. Soi Fong, the captain of the 2nd Division, let out a muffled groan. She leaped into the air and leaped into the air. I actually lost to him in what I'm best at. Aikuen's face was pale as his expression changed. He twitched from time to time as he saw Dustless's Ryatsu. His self-esteem was shattered. Aikuen had always been proud of his Ryatsu, but Dustless's appearance mercilessly shattered his pride. Moreover, Dustless's time as a Shinigami was far less than Aikuen's, it was only a year. Aikuen had been a Shinigami for hundreds of years, but his efforts couldn't compare to Dustless's in a single year. He almost vomited blood as he suddenly realized that he had been living like a pig for hundreds of years. Hato's 91,000 hands bright sky cannon. Countless streaks of pink light swept out from the palm of his hand and shot towards Dustless in a destructive manner. Naive. Dustless's body glowed faintly as he used his elemental transformation to dodge the attack. He increased his Ryatsu and was about to rush towards Aikuen with even more ferocity when a delicate figure blocked Dustless's path. So. The black figure rushed over and appeared in front of Dustless in the blink of an eye. Her speed wasn't any slower than Dustless's as she punched towards Dustless. You're still too slow compared to me. Soi Fong coldly stared at Dustless. Seeing that he wasn't moved, she increased her strength by 30%. Smiling contemptuously, Wu Chen said disdainfully, "You're fast, but your power is too weak." Dustless didn't even use his elemental transformation. He casually grabbed the incoming fist and threw Soi Fong to the horizon. Chapter 1081. The powerful force made it hard for Soi Fong to even stop her body. It was as if she was hit by a 10,000-ton meteorite. She was thrown hundreds of meters away before she could regain her balance. Monster, it must be a monster. Soi Fong took a deep breath to calm her emotions. Her gaze also changed from looking straight up to looking up. Idiot, I told you to attack together. Don't act rashly, or we will be defeated by this monster one by one. Shun Sui looked around and warned. When he saw the remaining members on his side, he frowned. After fighting for so long, we are the only ones who keep losing people. That guy is still safe. Dustless held the Zanpakuto's hilt tightly and looked up at the sky like a god looking down on all living things. Byakuya was unwilling to give up. The gap between the two sides was too big, so big that it made them feel hopeless. This Shinigami who had only been a Shinigami for 1 year had surpassed their hundreds of years of hard work. Shun Sui tried to persuade Byakuya, Captain Byakuya, don't be so pessimistic. Don't forget that this is Soul Society, the headquarters of the Shinigami. As soon as his voice fell, Shunsui wished he could give himself a slap. The surrounding reapers that were instantly killed were clearly visible. Just now, Dustless had only relied on his own aura and had effortlessly injured all the reapers. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a golden light swept across the sky and dyed the sky golden. The warm light fell from the sky, and it was completely different from the gentle sun. It was filled with destructive energy waves. Enchanting, Sparrow Bee Lightning Whip. Thousands of golden light converged on Soi Fan's arm like a black hole. It was a giant sparrow bee, and it looked like the tail of a queen bee. This exaggerated enchanting is the opposite of assassination. Dustless turned to look at Soi Fan. Sensing the sharpness of the golden weapon, the first thing he thought of was the nuclear bomb in his previous life. It looks good on the surface, but I don't know how powerful it is. Soi Fan's expression turned serious, and she said, "You will understand soon." She mobilized the remaining spiritual pressure in her body and gathered it on her right arm. Buzz buzz buzz, the metal weapon that looked like a missile buzzed and emitted a dazzling glow under the sunlight. Disappear. The metal's mysterious bankai had clearly reached its limit. So Fan let out a loud roar as the huge bankai wrapped around her arm ignited in flames and shot out like a missile. Large weapons were particularly cumbersome, but their speed was surprisingly fast. In the blink of an eye, they were gone, leaving only a smoky afterimage in the clear sky. TSK. To think that we were looking forward to it. It turns out to be such a boring bankai. Dustless curled his lips in disappointment and lost all interest. Spiritual pressure gathered at the tip of the blade. It was sparkling, translucent, and filled with beauty. As he raised his hand, a long and narrow crescent moonlight appeared. Boom boom boom. The biting cold slash tore apart the metal weapon, splitting it in half before exploding. The blazing heat wave could be felt from several kilometers away. Swish. Swish. The cold light suddenly appeared, as fast as lightning. Wu-Chin could only catch an inconspicuous black dot. "That's fast, Captain So Feng," Dustless said when he felt a slight movement in the space behind him. "I've already said that I'm best at speed." A gust of cold wind blew, and So Feng approached Dustless without him noticing. Her small weapon was pressed against Dustless's throat. "Is that so?" Dustless could not deny this point. He then said coldly, "However, I've already said that your speed is not bad, but your strength is not worth mentioning." His left eye spun rapidly, and a purple light flashed in the depths of his eye. An irresistible and intangible power spread out. Shinra Tensei. As if she had been punched in the face, So Feng was sent flying again. Like a willow branch swaying in the wind, she could not retaliate at all. Dustless took a step forward and was about to give So Feng a fatal blow, but the eyesore of cherry blossoms suddenly appeared and formed a sea of flowers, blocking Dustless's path. "Don't treat us like air." Shunsui and Byakuya flew into the air and glared at Dustless. The only ones left in the Godai 13 were Shunsui Kyokura, Byakuya Aizen, and Yamamoto. The remaining captains had all lost their ability to fight. "In just a few exchanges, we've lost more than half of our captains, and this guy's expression is normal, and his spiritual pressure is not showing any signs of drying up. Ridiculous. We can't even be used as cannon fodder," Shunsui said gloomily. This was the first time they, as captains, had been defeated so mercilessly. "No need to be sad, just thank me. The rest of you are about to fall asleep on the ground." Sensing that there was not much spiritual pressure left in his body, Dustless took a step forward. His speed was beyond imagination, and he crossed 1,000 meters in a single step. The tip of the Kusanagi sword descended from the sky and slashed at Shuansui's head. Shunsui was shocked. Before the sword arrived, he felt an unprecedented aura of death. His whole body was cold, and he quickly thought of a countermeasure. Realizing that there was nothing he could do, he retreated unwillingly. It's not that Shunsui was timid, but he didn't want to make a meaningless sacrifice. This ordinary sword could easily cut down a grand virtual like Vastolord. When one's strength reached Dustless's level, it was like this. Even if it was the most insignificant attack, the destruction created was also world-shocking. Dustless secretly laughed, and his body instantly disappeared without a trace. Captain Shunsui, behind you. Shunsui was shocked when he heard this, and his pupils widened. He turned his head and looked at Dustless, who was holding his Zanpakuto high. He was obviously prepared for this. This guy can actually read my movements. Can he predict the future? Chapter 1082. Shunsui was shocked speechless. He never thought that the enemy could be as troublesome as Dustless. His strength was perfect, he could easily use destructive attacks, and at the same time, he could dodge any perfect sneak attack. Not only that, the mysterious purple eyes now seemed to be able to see the future, read people's hearts, and react in advance. Puchi. Scorching sword wounds spread all over his back. The Kusanagi sword ruthlessly slashed out, easily injuring Shunsui. His body instantly lost its support point and began to shake. You bastard! He turned around with difficulty, gritted his teeth to maintain his balance, and used all his strength to penetrate Dustless. Good chance. Seeing Dustless motionless like a statue, Shuinsui's strength in his hand increased by 30%. Puchi. Jingle Chunshui's hopes were dashed and turned into a bubble. What replaced it was a dumbfounded expression. The saber light pierced through Wuchen's head, but the same scene happened again. The wound glowed with a warm luster and was instantly healed. Goodbye, Captain Shunsui. Dustless's expression was cold. Light suddenly appeared under his feet, and mercilessly kicked Shunsui with all his strength. Light speed kick. Since they had shed all pretense of cordiality, Dustless naturally wouldn't show mercy to this group of captains. Boom boom boom. There was a loud rumbling sound in the sky. Shunsui finally couldn't maintain his body, and threw away the Zanpakuto in his hand. His charred body was still emitting visible black smoke, and Aizen and Byakuya watched in surprise. Boom! Shuinsui's body slammed heavily on the ground. His face was unrecognizable, his hair was burned bald, and he looked very sloppy. Captain Shunsui. Keiki Byakuya's heart couldn't help but sink as he looked at Aizen Sosuke. Seeing that he showed no signs of joining forces and that his mind was wandering, Keiki Byakuya could only sit there like a trapped beast. After a few breaths, the sky was shrouded in a pink halo. The petals all over the sky danced above Dustless's head. The scenery was beautiful, and being in a sea of flowers made people involuntarily let down their guard. It's a pity, I was born a vulgar person, such a beautiful scenery, but I don't feel anything. Instead, I find it very annoying. Dustless looked up indifferently, and destructive energy fluctuations gathered at his fingertips. Yasukani no Magatama. Golden light flashed, and the power was extremely strong. There were more than tens of thousands of them, and they rushed into the sea of flowers in a tough manner, creating a large vacuum area. There were many light bullets formed by the Yasukani no Magatama, but in terms of quantity, these flower petals were superior. It was as if they could split. Not only did they not decrease, but they also increased as Kumubaya's spiritual pressure increased. Finally, they formed a circle and surrounded Dustless. It's time, after a long while, Byakuyas. Senbonbonzakura. The floating petals around Dustless immediately gathered. Clearly, they were guided by Kuchiki Baya and turned into a large petal sphere hanging in the sky. An all-around attack with no blind spots. Dustless's low cry came from inside the giant sphere formed by pink petals. Looking around, countless petals tore at his body, and their sharpness was even sharper than a steel knife. It's this kind of thing over and over again. It's so boring. He casually grabbed a petal, but the texture was extremely strange, it was as hard as steel. Wither. With a slight force from his fingertips, Dustless's expression turned cold, and a black sphere immediately appeared behind him, its size constantly increasing in size. Caw caw caw. The moment this unassuming black sphere came into contact with the Senbonzakura petals, the blooming petals all collapsed, as if they had never existed, and disappeared without a trace. What is that? Byakuya was shocked. Inside the sphere formed by the petals, the huge black sphere expanded without limit, and all the petals that came into contact with it turned into nothingness. Dustless stood in it as if nothing had happened, yawning in boredom, and looked drowsy. Seeing this scene, Byakuya felt as if a sharp thorn had pierced into his heart, the pain was unbearable, and his self-esteem was trampled by Dustless. In the blink of an eye, one of Byakuya's strongest moves that he trusted collapsed. Don't put on such an incredulous expression, using the truth-seeking ball to deal with this kind of thing is already giving you face, Dustless said indifferently as he looked at the absent-minded Byakuya. Huff, suppressing his fluctuating heart, Byakuya raised his Sanpakudo, and countless petals fluttered again, the only difference was that they all gathered on both sides of his body. Final scene, White Sword Emperor. The dazzling white light on both sides turned from nothingness to reality, as if they were flapping their wings, and a supreme sword will came head-on. Dustless curled his lips in disdain when he saw this. He deeply despised such flashy moves and sneered, "These fancy moves are the true portrayal of you, incompetent." After saying that, Dustless did not wait for Byakuya to attack, and the remaining spiritual pressure in his body locked onto him, turning into countless black lights that devoured him. 90 of the broken path, black coffin. A deep black luster came from all directions, and although Byakuya noticed it immediately, just as he was about to dodge, 6 golden ribbons of light restrained his movements. 61 of the Bakudo, 6 rod-like prison. Realizing that his body could not move, Byakuya's face suddenly collapsed, and his eyes changed back and forth. The light on both wings flapped, and then countless white lights whizzed out, trying to stop the invasion of the black lights. Caw caw caw, the black lights that came from all directions were successfully dispersed, turning into scattered spiritual particles that floated away. Byakuya heaved a sigh of relief, and just as he was about to use all his strength to deal with Dustless, a golden light whizzed over. Pfft! The sharpness of the Kusanagi sword pierced through Byakuya. Chapter 1083. Head Captain Yamamoto, who was watching from the ground, felt dizzy. His old face, which looked like dead tree bark, trembled, and his drooping long beard stood straight up. The Godii 13 that he had painstakingly trained couldn't even withstand a single blow. They were all defeated in a few moves. Now, the only one left in the sky was Sosuke Aizen, who was facing Dustless. Heido number 88, Flying Dragon Strikes Thief. A flash of light shot up from the ground and locked onto Dustless in the sky. Yamamoto was the initiator of this attack. The Heido released by Yamamoto was naturally powerful. The thick beam of light made it hard for people to look at it directly. If they looked at it directly, their eyes would be dazzled, and they wouldn't be able to see anything clearly. My Ryatsu is almost used up. Dustless sighed when he sensed that there wasn't much Ryatsu left. Dustless glanced at the beam of light and used the last of his Ryatsu to counterattack. Bakudo number 81, Sky Breaker. A transparent barrier appeared under Dustless's feet, blocking the impact of the 88 Heido. Boom boom boom. The light swept over, and the barrier shook violently. The barrier that was as thin as a cicada's wing and should have been easily broken was surprisingly easy to break. After a short stalemate, the light was extinguished. The thick beam of light was also gradually extinguished. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yamamoto couldn't wait any longer and jumped in front of Dustless. He looked around and saw that only he and Sosuke Aizen were left. The rest of the Godai 13 had been wiped out. Captain Dustless's Ryatsu seems to have run out. Are you still planning to resist? Aizen's sharp eyes noticed that Dustless's Ryatsu had run out, and his tense nerves relaxed. He smiled and said, "Surrender. Maybe the captain will be merciful and let you go." Yamamoto was silent. His murderous intent gathered in his murky eyes. Wherever he looked, there was only silence. "You're right. As a Shinigami, my Ryatsu has indeed run out." Dustless didn't deny it. It was the truth. He's actually laughing. Is there something wrong with his head? Aizen scolded Sosuke in his heart. He was observant and he clearly saw the smile on Dustless's face. He didn't know why, but Aizen felt a chill down his spine. The spiritual pressure of the Grim Reaper has already reached the bottom. What do you mean by that? Could it be that you have the spiritual pressure of a void? Don't be so quick with your words. Yamamoto frowned and coldly snorted. This old man advises you to put down the sword in your hand immediately. The power of Ryujin Jaka is too strong. It will be difficult to save your life. Wuchen smiled slightly when he heard that. These words were arrogant, but it was the truth. His face was incomparably dark, and his eyes were squinted. At this moment, Dustless was exceptionally terrifying and sinister. He smiled and said, "Sir Head Captain is indeed wise. Other than the spiritual pressure of the Grim Reaper, I do indeed have the spiritual pressure of the void." As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless's chest began to emit a milky white high-density spiritual pressure. Caw caw caw. His shirt instantly burst open, revealing his clean skin. His skin was as white as snow without any impurities. However, Yamamoto and Aizen's eyes were focused on the purple pearl embedded in Dustless's abdomen. At this moment, it was emitting a mysterious halo and endlessly transmitting spiritual pressure. The dried-up spiritual pressure in Dustless's body was filled to the brim in almost less than a second. This is Hogyoku. Yamamoto and Aizen Sosuke were shocked. They said the name of the mysterious sphere in unison. Their hearts were in their throats. If East Deity didn't say that Hogyoku was destroyed, how could it have fallen into his hands? Head Captain Yamamoto said with a pale face. He almost vomited blood when he sensed that Wuchen's Ryatsu had recovered instantly. I don't know, Aizen's face was also pale. He was sure that East Senpai didn't lie to him. The density of the Hogyoku embedded in Dustless's chest was extremely high. It was dozens of times higher than the one he made himself. Confused. That's right. The Hogyoku continued to erupt spiritual pressure, and Dustless's body gradually changed. A layer of milky white halo covered his entire body. His entire body was wrapped in a high-density spiritual pressure. I just used some small genjutsu to make East Senpai think that I destroyed the Hogyoku. In fact, that's not the case. The Hogyoku is such a heaven-defying object, why would I destroy it? Dustless said with a smile. Looking at Captain Yamamoto and Aizen's expressions, it was as if they had eaten 10 pounds of flies. Dustless felt particularly happy. In fact, Urahara Kasuke also made a Hogyoku, and I took it. Together with the Hogyoku that East Senpai wanted, there were a total of 2. But now, I merged them into one Hogyoku. Yamamoto was startled when he heard this. He sensed that something was wrong and asked, "Impossible, you didn't leave Soul Society, and it's impossible for you to go to the modern world. The modern world is also monitored by Soul Society's Shinigami." No, Yamamoto suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. Did you use the gap in Hueco Mundo to go to the modern world to find Urahara Kasuke? You took the opportunity to steal his Hogyoku. Dustless shrugged and nodded, saying with a smile, "Sir Head Captain's analysis is reasonable." Puff! Yamamoto's body trembled, and he almost fell down. He was the one who approved Dustless's expedition to Hueco Mundo, but now it seemed that he had shot himself in the foot. Don't let this old guy die of anger. Aizen looked at the trembling Yamamoto, and a rare touch of pity rose in his heart. He was sure that if he attacked Yamamoto now, he would be able to kill him in one blow. However, the serious situation made Aizen let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After Yamamoto died, he would have to face Dustless alone. He would die without a doubt. Chapter 1084. Looking at Dustless's attitude, Aizen was happy. Through Dustless's words, he knew how to create a perfect Hogyoku. So that's how it is. Merging with Urahara Kasuke's Hogyoku can create a perfect Hogyoku. Thousands of doubts disappeared, and the puzzle in his heart disappeared with the wind. Aizen was very relaxed, and his face was full of joy. Dustless smiled and didn't say anything. Dustless felt the Ryatsu in his body, and his eyes were cold. Aizen and Yamamoto could test the effect of the Hogyoku. I also want to see how good the Hogyoku is. Aizen's eyes were like torches, and his Ryatsu surged. His Ryatsu was stronger than all the captains, causing Yamamoto to frown. Yamamoto looked at Aizen with a different expression. He didn't expect this gentle captain to have such a strong Ryatsu. No one in the Godai 13 could compete with him. Aizen pointed his thumb to the sky and began to chant. Faintly revealing the turbid emblem, the ability to be unruly and arrogant, tides negation paralysis for a moment. Know your own powerlessness. Hado 90 Black Coffin. After he finished his chant, Sosuke Aizen revealed a cold smile. He suddenly looked at the sky, and countless sharp black lights poured down, decorating the demonic afterglow. It could tear a human's body to pieces. My black coffin can easily kill a grand void like Vastolord. Even if you fuse with Hogyoku, it won't be easy for you to get hit. Aizen laughed inside, full of pride. For hundreds of years, he worked hard to improve his strength. His strength was far beyond the other captains of the Godai 13. Such a boring attack. Are you kidding me? The cold words made Aizen's mouth twitch. He sneered, is that so? I hope you won't be torn apart by this trick. Dustless was silent, and he closed his eyes. At the same time, the huge black coffin wrapped around him. Puchi! 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 The interior of the black coffin was sinister and decaying. Countless black blades slashed at the same time. There was only one target, Dustless. Tens of thousands of blades attacked him at the same time. Caw caw caw, Dustless didn't dodge or evade. He didn't use his elemental transformation, nor did he use his divinity. He just stood there quietly, bathed in the thousands of cold light attacks. The moment the black blades came into contact with Dustless's body, they all collapsed and shattered. The high-density white spiritual pressure covering Dustless's skin was similar to Void's steel skin, but its hardness was completely different. In this state, Dustless had completely transcended the dimension of Shinigami and Hollow. Aizen Sosuke was delusional to think that he could hurt Dustless in a higher dimension. Therefore, there was no need to dodge at all. The black coffin had no effect on Dustless. It didn't even tickle him. At least, it could make Dustless feel that someone was touching him. While being attacked by the black coffin, he didn't feel anything at all. It was as if nothing was there. It was just that the sky darkened. Let's stop here. Looking around, Dustless saw that the blades had stopped. He waved his hand, and a violent hurricane roared out. Caw caw caw. The moment the hurricane came out of Dustless's hand, it was magnified hundreds of times, and its power was also the same. It instantly destroyed the black coffin, and the sky became clear again. He's not injured at all. How is this possible? Seeing that Dustless was fine, Aizen Sosuke was stunned. His hand holding the Zanpakuto trembled, and his Kyoka Suigetsu almost fell down. He looked at Dustless as if he saw a ghost. He clearly heard the caw sound coming from inside the black coffin. Yamamoto was silent, but from his trembling lips, it wasn't difficult to see that his heart was also in turmoil. This guy didn't make any evasive moves, and he didn't use any tricks. He just relied on the hardness of his body to withstand the attack of Hado 90. Head Captain Yamamoto, who had sharp eyes, instantly saw through the trick. Yamamoto's face was gloomy, and he suddenly wished that he didn't understand anything. Sometimes, knowing the truth made him feel heavier than ever. Dustless's white steel skin was enough to easily defend against any attack. For the time being, Aizen was still in the Shinigami's dimension. It was tantamount to a fantasy for him to cause any substantial damage to Dustless. Any of his physical attacks, Dustless didn't need to defend. The gap is too big, your attacks don't work on me at all. Dustless glanced at Aizen and said in a low voice. His tone was full of disdain. He looked at Aizen as if he was looking at an ant. Hearing this, Aizen's old face turned green. He was always the one who treated others like ants, but this time, he and Dustless switched positions. What's worse, this was an undeniable fact. He didn't waste time talking nonsense with Aizen, he gently raised his thumb, and a huge golden light appeared. What a strong power, what level of Hado is this? Staring at the flash condensed by Wu Chen, Head Captain Yamamoto speculated. The sharpness of this energy ball was beyond any Tao breaker he had ever known. The small ball was only the size of a palm, but it dyed the sky within tens of kilometers of Soul Society golden. No, it doesn't seem to be Hado. Noticing the strange Ryatsu in Dustless's body, Aizen was keenly aware of a bloodthirsty wild wave that wanted to destroy everything in the world. It was extremely evil. This seems to be Void Flash. Chapter 1085. Aizen was very excited. Dustless's combat power was far beyond his expectations. When he completes his Hogyoku, he will reach the same level as Dustless. A flash of light appeared, and the shadow of death covered Aizen Sosuke. His impassioned heart vanished. Being targeted by the flash, Aizen Sosuke instinctively hid behind Head Captain Yamamoto. This exaggerated golden void flash refreshed Aizen and Yamamoto's understanding. Dustless kept transferring Ryatsu to void flash, and the void flash reached a qualitative change. After the dazzling light, it reached its limit and made a series of roars. Whoosh! Dustless glanced at Aizen, Yamamoto Motosuke, and Willow Chiguni without the slightest emotion. Dustless flicked out void flash. Kakaka, the golden light flashed and disappeared. They couldn't see what it looked like. They could only see a thick beam of light that exploded along the way. This level of void flash, Yamamoto's face sank. He gave up on the idea of using Bakudo. It would only be embarrassing. Ha! With a low shout, Ryujin Jaka spewed out a flame that gathered on the blade. The temperature was so hot that Dustless, who was hundreds of meters away, trembled. This old guy. As expected of someone who could defeat someone like Yawatch. He deserves the title of the strongest Shinigami. Dustless nodded after seeing the sharpness of Ryujin Jaka's blade. This was just the beginning. After a while, Ryujin Jaka's blade showed an even stranger scene. The flames around Ryujin Jaka's blade were all compressed into the blade. What's going on? The Ryatsu didn't change, and it's not Bankai. Dustless thought to himself. He stared at Yamamoto's next move with anticipation. The stronger the enemy, the better. It would be best if he could feel the danger of death, so that he could use the power of the Hogyoku to evolve. At the same time, under the gaze of Dustless and Aizen, Yamamoto's long hair fluttered in the wind. He stared at the incoming light without fear and calmly raised Ryujin Jaka. As Void Flash approached, Head Captain Yamamoto swung his Zanpakuto. Boom boom boom. The moment it hit Void Flash, the dry body of Flowing Edge Jaka's blades suddenly erupted with a terrifying amount of explosive flames. It was so hot that even the sky was melting and peeling off layer by layer. Before Void Flash could explode, it was burned by the flames released by Flowing Jaka and disappeared without a trace. I see. Seeing this scene, Dustless was relieved. He suddenly remembered that the Ryujin Jaka was a sword of fire, capable of erasing everything it touched. Sealing all the flames into the Zanpakuto, once it is swung, everything will be over, and everything will be burned to ashes. This is the horror of Ryujin Jaka. Everything it touches will be turned to ashes. This is interesting. The stronger you are, the happier I will be. Dustless was overjoyed when he saw this. The Hogyoku was like this. If he wanted to improve, he must have a strong opponent. Good opportunity. You dare to be distracted while fighting with the head captain. You're amazing. Seeing Dustless was distracted, Aizen admired him from the bottom of his heart. Normal people would be 120% alert when facing the head captain, only Dustless dared to be so daring. Then, under the head captain's confused gaze, Aizen stood in front of Dustless. You traitor, the head captain is a kind person, and you owe him a lot, but in the end, you betrayed Soul Society and turned against the Shinigami, shameless. Aizen Sosuke was the first to accuse him of evil. Come here. Ant. Dustless glanced at Aizen and curled his finger. He didn't even bother to call him by his name. You. Bastard. Hearing this, Aizen Sosuke's face turned red. He gritted his teeth and roared. It was ironic to be called an ant in such a big way. Sosuke Aizen's pride was shattered into pieces. If he wanted to heal it, he'd have to kill Dustless. In that case, let's try the strength of an ant. Spiritual pressure surged like a waterfall. Aizen's palm flashed with countless lights. Hato 91, Thousand Hands Bright Sky Cannon. A large number of pink lights shot out. The number of them was enough to make people despair. The momentum was spectacular. They all rushed towards Dustless. Boom boom boom. The dense light all hit Dustless, splashing a huge aftershock. The destructive impact extended to the distant sky. Countless flashes caused a series of explosions. In just a few minutes, the void where Dustless was standing was filled with violent explosions. Dustless's indifferent eyes looked straight ahead, surrounded by a sea of fire, but he didn't react at all. He was just looking for Aizen's trace. He completely ignored the pink light that hit his body. Where did that sneaky guy go? Dustless couldn't help but murmur. After searching for a long time, he couldn't find any trace of Aizen. When he was about to use his observation hockey to look for Aizen, a sharp light came from behind him. Go to hell. Aizen, holding Kyoka Suigetsu, fell from the sky. His spiritual pressure was pushed to the limit, and his Zanpakuto slashed towards Dustless. Crack! A crisp sound suddenly came. Aizen thought that Dustless's head would be separated, but who would have thought that his Zanpakuto would be chipped? On the other hand, Dustless was safe and sound. The Ryatsu outside his body was enough to ignore all physical attacks. Chapter 1086. Aizen Sosuke looked at the cracked Zanpakuto in disbelief. He was so shocked that his jaw almost dislocated. He used Kyoka Suigetsu to attack someone else. Dustless himself was fine, but his Kyoka Suigetsu was cracked. One could imagine how shocked he was. You're still far from being able to stand on this stage. Raising his eyebrows, Dustless, who was still in the Hogyoku cradle state, stepped forward and heavily injured Aizen Sosuke, sending him straight to hell. Puchi! The hot Zanpakuto heavily injured Aizen Sosuke and opened a giant hole in his chest. Not only that, Dustless pulled out his Kusanagi sword and kicked Aizen Sosuke away. A pink disk of flames flew out. Hado 54, Flame Destruction. The pink flame disk penetrated Aizen Sosuke's body before he could even react. Puchi! Bright red blood spurted into the air and an arm fell to the ground. You bastard! I'll kill you! Aizen Sosuke looked up and saw that Dustless cut his left arm. If Aizen Sosuke didn't dodge in time, he would have been cut in half. Go to hell, he glanced at Aizen Sosuke indifferently. His golden flash roared and approached Aizen Sosuke in an instant. However, a figure blocked Aizen Sosuke's path in time. He waved his Zanpakuto and dissolved the golden flash. Boom boom boom. The blazing flames incinerated Void Flash. Old man Yamamoto stood in front of Aizen Sosuke. He was the one who had saved Sosuke's life at the last moment. If this old man knew that Aizen Sosuke betrayed Soul Society and almost killed him, wouldn't he be so depressed that he vomited blood? Ignoring old man Yamamoto's gaze, he raised his Kusanpakuto again. A huge golden light gathered at the tip of the sword. So. The terrifying luster of destruction almost filled the entire sky of Soul Society, and the entire sky was replaced by this terrifying and biting cold light. This guy is too dangerous. Seeing this, Yamamoto didn't hesitate to release his Zanpakuto. Bankai, Zanpakuto Tachi. As the vigorous and old voice fell, the flowing edge Jaka was instantly charred, giving off a wisp of hot steam. The captain actually used Bankai. Aizen Sosuke, who was hiding behind Yamamoto, was shocked. He stared at the burnt Zanpakuto. He could clearly feel that the water in Soul Society was slowly evaporating. Water was the source of all things. Once it was completely lost, it was self-evident what it meant. The collapse of Soul Society was close at hand. A powerful aura of destruction gathered at the tip of the blade. Head Captain Yamamoto stared at the huge attack coming at him. In the end, a huge blade aura swept out from the tip of the blade. Zanpakuto Tachi, Heaven and Earth. Sosuke's Zanpakuto made contact with Dustless's Zanpakuto. Zanpakuto Tachi didn't even explode. The explosion, the Zanpakuto Tachi was directly shredded. Not even the slightest trace was left. Sosuke's handsome face was almost distorted, looking at his broken left arm and the hole in his chest. If he hadn't gone through hundreds of years of training, he would have died already. Sosuke clenched his fists, his face was full of unwillingness. He thought that even without the Hogyoku, his strength was not much different from the captain's, but this situation was far beyond his imagination. What a powerful power! Dustless's pupils shrank as he was envious. He immediately saw the hot Zanpakuto Tachi sweeping towards him. He didn't even have time to react before the Zanpakuto Tachi swallowed him. Puchi! The invincible defensive Ryatsu coat was shattered easily like an eggshell. The left half of Wu Chen's body was also erased directly. This should be the end of it. Yamamoto breathed a sigh of relief. However, Dustless's next sentence sent him to hell. End? Are you kidding me? You want to kill me? Dream on. With a contemptuous smile, Dustless's left body began to slowly recover. The Jubi is immortal, all injuries can be healed. Zanpakuto Tachi, noticing the evaporation of Soul Society and the abnormality of Ryujin Jaka, Dustless immediately understood that old man Yamamoto released his Zanpakuto. However, at this moment, the Hogyoku in his body burst out with a high density of Ryatsu again. Hogyoku. Is this evolution? It shouldn't be, only when the host feels the danger of death or has emotions like fear can it evolve. Dustless frowned as he noticed the abnormality of the Hogyoku in his body. Although he was seriously injured, it didn't affect him much, let alone feeling the fear of death, so evolution was nonsense. And this eruption of Ryatsu was far more than before. There was a qualitative change, like an endless ocean. Dustless is the Jubi, his body is strong enough, otherwise, he will definitely explode. Unprecedented terrifying Ryatsu floated all over his body, and the storm produced directly forced Yamamoto to retreat. Just when Dustless was about to go all out and sweep the entire Soul Society into the garbage dump of history, a huge Tianju chariot suddenly flashed in the sky, and several unfamiliar figures jumped down. Among them, there were two women that Dustless knew. So it's Team Zero, you came at the right time. I don't need to find a way to kill my way to the Spirit King Palace. The Ryatsu armor covering his face broke again, revealing Dustless's cold face, and his pupils changed, emitting a strange luster. Just now, he received the Hogyoku's Ryatsu and evolved again. Chapter 1087. The people who suddenly appeared were all wearing the same uniform, all captains Haori, and the badge behind them were also the same. Several members of Team Zero were all present, Hattori Department's Ishii, Naomiya's Wangyu, Kirin Temple's Tenshiro, as well as Dustless's acquaintances, Shutoro Senjumaru and Seo Toshio. Ah! You were forced to use Bankai, you're really embarrassed, Genryusai. Kirin Temple's Tenshiro stood up and said sarcastically. It sounded like he was mocking Yamamoto, but in fact, he was looking at Dustless from the corner of his eyes. In the end, his face was completely gloomy. The two of them mentioned you before. I thought you would be loyal to Soul Society, but now your performance is too disappointing. We even tried to recruit you into Team Zero. Why did you betray Shinigami? Why did you betray Soul Society? Why did you betray Soul Lord? Hattori Department's Ishii gritted his teeth and said, almost roaring in the end. Dustless looked at Shutoro Senjumaru's slightly complicated face, the killing intent on his face disappeared, and his indifferent voice softened a little. With an apologetic tone, he said, I'm sorry. As Dustless's spiritual pressure was extinguished, so was Yamamoto's. The scene stopped for a while, and Soul Society, which was being crushed by spiritual pressure, finally returned to a temporary calm. Soul Society has been good to you, and we didn't do anything wrong to you. Why did you do this? Shutoro Senjumaru asked. She was the one who tried to recruit Dustless into Team Zero. Looking around at the fallen Shinigami, and all the captains who were killed, Shutoro Senjumaru's eyes flashed with surprise, and said angrily, now you actually annihilated all the Shinigami. Seeing this, the members of Team Zero showed murderous intent, and at the same time, they were secretly surprised by Dustless's combat power. Looking at old man Yamamoto's tired appearance, they all looked solemn. There is no doubt that the combat power of Team Zero is higher than the entire Godai 13, but that's if all the members of Team Zero are combined. Whether they can beat old man Yamamoto one-on-one is still a question. Looking at the situation now, old man Yamamoto was forced to use Bankai. His opponent didn't even use his Zanpakuto. I've said it before, I don't want to be enemies with the Grim Reaper. Dustless shook his head and reiterated once again. I don't want to be enemies with the Grim Reaper. I also don't want to kill the Spirit King. Whether he lives or dies has nothing to do with me. My only goal is to strip the Spirit King of his title and replace him with me in the end. Wu Qin said softly, as if it was a trivial matter. He was very calm and relaxed. These deranged words stunned everyone. Only head Captain Yamamoto and a few members of Squad Zero heard it. As for Sosuke Aizen, he was seriously injured by Dustless and is now unconscious. Do you even understand what you are saying? Do you know what Spirit King means to Soul Society? Lord Spirit King's existence symbolizes the existence of the entire world. If the Spirit King were to disappear, everything would vanish into thin air. Wang Yu, who had the title of Knife God, said angrily. The Spirit King was finished. Everything would turn into a bubble. You're called the God of Broadswords. It seems that you don't live up to your name. After all, you're just an ordinary man with shallow knowledge. Glancing at Wang Yu, Dustless simply ignored him and explained. Spirit King is the chisel of everything. It can even be said that he's the cornerstone of the world. But he's also the Grim Reaper's biggest weakness. Hearing this, the members of Squad Zero couldn't help but stagnate. They confessed to Dustless's words. Because they have to protect the Spirit King, the Grim Reaper wants to be restrained. Dealing with all enemies is based on protecting the Spirit King. And the Spirit King himself has no fighting power. He's a burden to Squad Zero. After all, they have to constantly protect the Spirit King, so they can't get away. If I become the Spirit King, I don't need to say it, you know what it means. The corner of his mouth raised, Dustless smiled and said bewitchingly. Your Squad Zero can get rid of the restraints and have no worries. You can use all your strength to deal with Yawatch. You even know about Yawatch. The members of Squad Zero were stunned. They all lowered their heads at the same time. Their eyes flickered. If there's no Spirit King, their Squad Zero and the Grim Reaper of Soul Society can use all their strength to deal with their comrade Yawatch. This is an undeniable advantage. And it's not difficult to see that Dustless himself has a strong fighting power. The Spirit King is built to stabilize the soul. You think you can replace him just because you say so? Sayaso sneered. Looking at Dustless's face, she suddenly remembered that she was molested by Dustless. She suddenly became angry. Don't say no. Even if you can, if you want to be the Spirit King, I'll be the first to disagree. A woman's view. She glanced at Zhou Tongxing, and Wu Chen knew that she wanted to take revenge. To be honest, he didn't want to make things difficult for the Grim Reaper. However, Dustless is not the kind of person who is born to be someone's subordinate, even if it's the Spirit King. Dustless just wants to become the Spirit King and seize his power. In a sense, the Spirit King is a collection of souls. Its role is even greater than the Hogyoku. Soul Society is a place where Ryatsu is used. What determines the amount of Ryatsu is a person's soul. It seems that there is no room for negotiation. Looking at the members of Squad Zero and Head Captain Yamamoto, Dustless saw that they were indifferent and unmoved. Dustless understood that wasting half a day of words before will not have any effect. The vigorous Ryatsu in his body surged again. Just as he was about to kill them, a sudden change occurred. Dustless's pupils shrank. He stared at the Hogyoku in his body. He was keenly aware that something was wrong. Chapter 1088. The boundless spiritual pressure surged once again and continuously flowed into his body. There was no end to it, it was inexhaustible and there was no bottleneck. What is this situation? Sensing the raging spiritual pressure in his body, Dustless's face froze. He lowered his head to look at the Hogyoku embedded in his abdomen. When he was trying to find the source, a clear voice of nature came into his mind. Master, I will provide you with unlimited spiritual pressure. The Grim Reapers in front of you are very strong, the elites of the elites. You must go all out to deal with them. In his mind, the voice of the Hogyoku's consciousness came. It was clear and sweet. Dustless immediately understood that it was a woman's voice. That makes sense. I must go all out. Wu Chen nodded noncommittally. The members of the Zero Squad were not easy to deal with. Each and every one of them was an outstanding existence. The eagle's eyes flickered and finally fixed on the head of the first soldier. This bald man had a lot of experience and was one of the best in the Zero Squad. Seems like he is going to put up a resistance. The soldiers of the Bing division were not easy to deal with. When they saw Wu Chen's murderous intent, they did not back down and unleashed their murderous aura. Wu Chen's surroundings were filled with the sound of ghosts crying and wolves howling. These Zero Squad were actually butchers. They had killed many people. Pay attention to your position. In front of the Spirit King, nothing is worth mentioning. There is no existence equal to the Spirit King. The Zero Squad's mission is to guard the Spirit King. The first soldier locked his eyes on Dushless, but his eyes were drifting around. He was looking at Shoutoro Senjumaru and Sayaso Tongsai from the corner of his eyes. Obviously, he was absent-minded. These two were the closest to Dushless in the Zero Squad, especially Shoutoro Senjumaru. These words were purposely said for the two of them. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground suddenly throbbed and began to shake. It was like jumping on a bed. Retreat. Feeling the throbbing danger from the ground, the first soldier warned, "This guy is not an ordinary captain. Don't be arrogant because of the Zero Squad." His intention was to place Dustless on the same level. If they underestimated him, they might fail miserably. Tao Breaker 2, 96, One Blade Cremation. The extremely destructive blade-shaped flames drilled out of the ground and burned the entire sky, leaving behind a blade-shaped shadow. The members of Squad 0 were in a sorry state. Their pure white captain's feather was burnt black, revealing their skin. Looking at the shocking cracks on the ground, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. He must be crazy. Number 96, Tao Breaker, is a sacrificial Tao Breaker. It will burn itself to ashes. Qilin Temple's Tianqilang was sweating for Dustless's craziness. To use such a ruthless self-harming move right from the start, one could definitely tell that Dustless wasn't a good person. It was no less brutal than Yawatch back then. At the very least, Yawatch cared about his own life. He has fused with Hogyoku. His strength is beyond our knowledge. Even if his body is burned, with the power of Hogyoku, he can regrow his limbs. Holding Zenka no Tachi, Yamamoto's heart was heavy. The biggest advantage of Zenka no Tachi was that it could erase the matter it hit with an explosive flame. But on Dustless, it was a different story. Super regeneration ability was completely useless. Just like when Dustless was hit by Zenka no Tachi, in less than a second, a brand new limb grew back. That is to say, this guy can't be killed no matter what. Looking at the faces of the members of Squad 0, some people also had other thoughts. A new Soul King that can't be killed no matter what means that Soul Society will no longer have to worry about the collapse of the three realms. If we can't kill him, we can only seal him. Rolling his huge eyes, First Soldier began to wave his writing brush in Zanpakuto, writing a large word, seal, in the void behind him. As soon as the pen fell, the place where Dustless and others were fighting was isolated from Soul Society behind them. The flowing air was obviously separated, filled with a suffocating danger, and the surrounding space was inexplicably sealed. This ability is really shameless. Will I die if you just write the word die? ? With a slightly stiff expression, Dustless was speechless and said to himself. Although he said so, the expression on his face didn't change from beginning to end. He was fearless. This way, his movement will be restricted. It will be much more convenient to seal him. First Soldier said in his heart. At the same time, he gave Yamamoto and the other members of Squad 0 a look, indicating that they should wait for the opportunity to move. Since you're not coming, I'll take the initiative to bully the weak. Seeing that they were exchanging glances, obviously discussing some conspiracy, Dustless was unmoved. Just as he was about to hit them with his Ryatsu, a huge palm came at him. 1,000 miles heaven palm. The huge palm was completely formed by Ryatsu, similar to a small mountain. Final struggle. Seeing this, Dustless didn't dodge. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, and an exaggerated energy fluctuation overflowed from his body. Mahabharata. The boundless repulsive force exploded in the air, and the incoming palm was instantly smashed away. A deep pit appeared around Wu Qin, and a soldier from the Weapon Master Division was lying on the ground. His body was already beyond recognition, as he had been smashed into pieces. The meaning was similar to Shinra Tensei. Extremely weak. Disdainfully curling his lips, Dustless even felt that these so-called Zero Squad were not as good as Old Man Yamamoto. At least Old Man Yamamoto could fight with him, but these so-called Zero Squad couldn't. Amaterasu. Black flames appeared out of nowhere and roasted the corpse of a soldier from the army chief's division. Chapter 1089. Dustless was not afraid of the so-called Zero Squad. It was just like when Yawatch fought with Yamamoto in the future, he fought with a substitute. When he fought against the Zero Squad again, he did not even put them in his eyes. This was the stark difference between them. You Zero Squad may be useful against me if there are 5 of you on top, but a 1v1 is a world of difference. Dustless said coldly as he glanced at the body of a soldier from the Hyogo division. He looked around, looking for the position of the other members, but he suddenly found himself bound by a transparent chain. What is this, the ghost path? It doesn't seem like it, but it's unusually strong. When he was about to move his body, Dustless suddenly found his right arm was bound by a blue light. This chain was completely suppressed by a high density of spiritual pressure and was unusually strong. Don't struggle, this is something I developed with great care. On the left, a fat woman's voice came. He looked up and saw Sayasu Tongsai holding the transparent chain. Is that so? Dustless glanced at Sayasu Tongsai, and the suffocating spiritual pressure from his body swept out and turned into a violent hurricane. At this stage, I have completely surpassed the dimension of Shinigami and Hollow. It's not a big deal even if you guys come at me together, let alone use this ridiculous thing to bind my actions. The so-called Zero Squad is just a so-so. As soon as the voice fell, the chain that bound Dustless suddenly emitted a touch of fire, and it quickly extended towards Sayasu Tongsai. In the blink of an eye, it was close to her fingers. Let go! Shoutoro Kian Shimura quickly shouted, and at the same time, she rushed out of Dustless's sight, and the thousands of skeletal arms behind her stabbed toward Dustless's face. Bakudo 81, Skybreaker. A transparent barrier appeared out of nowhere, and stood in front of Dustless like a mountain. It was very strong. The defense of Sky Slasher was unimaginable, and it easily blocked the attack of the Shudora Thousand-Hand Maru. Dustless's indifferent expression loosened a little as he calmly sized up the Shudora Thousand-Handed Maru in front of him. Dustless said softly, "Get out of my way, you are not my opponent." Hearing this, Shudoro Senjumaru shook his head resolutely. His eyes were resolute and there was no room for him to back down. She stared at the transparent barrier in front of her, but her heart was filled with shock. The 81st binding path was something that she could shatter with a single stab, but she didn't expect it to be several times more powerful than before. Are you surprised? That's right. Your Squad Zero shouldn't be any younger than Head Captain Yamamoto, but your strength hasn't improved for thousands of years. If this continues, you'll be eliminated sooner or later. Looking at the Shudoro Thousand-Hand pill with a complicated expression, Dustless realized that he was unable to kill it. During his time in Soul Society, the only person who had helped him was Uno Hualai. Secondly, there was the Shura Thousand-Hand pill. At this moment, Dustless's eyebrows twitched. He suddenly felt that his body was starting to loosen up, becoming soft and very fragile. What's going on? Dustless's expression changed rapidly as he muttered in confusion. Soldier Division's first soldier. Namiya Wangyue and Chilan Temple Tenchula shouted at the same time. Immediately, the corpse of Soldier Division's first soldier reassembled and revived. This bald man, your Squad Zero isn't strong, but you have a lot of strange abilities. Dustless wasn't surprised by this. This bald monk was just so strange, and his ability was just so heaven-defying. Back then, after he was dismembered by Audiobooks, he was revived by someone calling his name. But I'll just have to kill you one more time. Only then will I be able to kill you completely. Dustless took a step forward. Just as he was about to step forward, his body started to change again. Is your body starting to soften? Are your limbs starting to lose strength? Are you gradually losing your mind? You can't even concentrate your spiritual pressure. Sayako Tongxing's laughter was heard. There was a deep sense of pride in his tone as he said, "It's just as you said. Squad Zero's strength has reached the level of the Grim Reaper, and it's as difficult as ascending to the heavens for them to advance any further. Therefore, over the years, we've developed many other tools to deal with our enemies." The revived soldier division's first soldier stretched his body and laughed. Actually, this is not bad. In the future, we'll use the tools to deal with Audiobooks. In your current state, you are not weaker than Audiobooks at all. In fact, in terms of physical attacks, Audiobooks is even weaker than you. Right now, you don't have the invincible strength, invincible defense, and invincible spiritual pressure like before. I'm sure you've felt it too. Your bones and insides are starting to loosen up. Sayako Tongxing smiled with exultation. This is a special drug I developed that can loosen the tissues of living creatures. Through the spiritual pressure chain just now, it has been injected into your body. Sensing the abnormality in his body, Dustless nodded silently. His expression didn't change as he asked calmly, "So? You want to kill me with this method?" Sayako Tongxing and the others shook their heads. Tenshilang of the Kirin Temple said in low spirits, "The Hogyoku in your body is too heaven-defying. We can't kill you. We can't even injure your wounds, and they haven't healed yet." The members of Squad Zero were very frustrated. "Therefore, we can only seal you." As soon as the voice fell, several members of Squad Zero took action at the same time, including Old Man Yamamoto, who hadn't taken action until now. But they didn't show any signs of attacking Dustless. They used a mysterious seal. Sure enough, I can't even concentrate my spiritual pressure. It seems that I can only use other methods. Dustless couldn't help but frown. Looking at the formation of Squad Zero, another energy in his body began to awaken. It was impossible for him to just wait for death. Chapter 1090. Dustless tried to mobilize the chakra in his body, but he was shocked to find that he could not move his limbs at all. Give up. In fact, we did not limit your spiritual pressure at all. Spiritual pressure is something that cannot be limited. As long as a person's heart is still beating, spiritual pressure will continue to overflow. Not to mention, you have something like the Hogyoku. Sayako Tongsai's eyes were bright as he explained, "So we only limited the movement of your limbs. If you can't move your hands and legs, all your abilities are just for show." Hearing this, Dustless could not help but feel incredulous at the foresight of Team Zero. If he could not move his hands and legs, the consequences were self-evident. He would be like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Dustless had a flash of inspiration, and asked, "What about dojitsu?" "I know dojitsu too." A soldier from the Hyobi division laughed confidently and said calmly, "What a coincidence. Yawatch also knows dojitsu, so we have also researched a special item to deal with him." In the next second, Dustless's eyes closed uncontrollably. "We can't limit your dojitsu, but we can paralyze your visual nerves so that you can never open your eyes. In this way, your dojitsu will be finished." At the same time, the members of Team Zero looked at each other, and Yamamoto Okuchi pounced on Dustless. They held extraordinary black bandages in their hands and skillfully tied up Dustless. In just a few seconds, Dustless was tied up like a rice dumpling. Only his mouth was exposed, and his hands and legs were tightly bound. Head Commander Yamamoto took out a stone chair that he had prepared in advance and placed Dustless on it, and then firmly restrained him. In this way, you can't move. The members of Team Zero were all deflated, and they stretched their bodies as if relieved of a heavy burden. Dustless sat quietly on the stone chair, indifferent. You really didn't want to be sealed, did you? Whether it's the truth-seeking jade or Kansusanu, you don't need your limbs or eyes to activate them. You can just use your mind. You can definitely counterattack, even if your eyes are restricted. System Ling, Er's voice sounded in his mind, full of confusion. Just like Uchiha Madara, after resurrecting, he can still use Kansusanu without eyes, and Dustless can do the same. Break the seal. Isn't it good to be sealed like this? Dustless chuckled and didn't care. From this battle, he understood a lot of things, especially the Hogyoku in his body. It was not as simple as Dustless thought. He could be 100% sure that Urahara Kasuke had done something to it. He could take advantage of this time to solve the problem of the Hogyoku. Aren't you going to kill me? Dustless asked calmly after his observation Haki extended and locked in their direction. It didn't matter to him whether he had eyes or not. Their every move couldn't escape Dustless's perception. It was funny to see this group of self-righteous clowns immersed in the joy of victory. This guy, several members of Team Zero frowned and looked at a guard of the Hattori department, waiting for the bald monk to make a decision. We can't kill him at the moment, and we haven't cut off his connection with the Hogyoku. Even if we kill him, his body will automatically repair itself. It's meaningless. A guard of the Hattori department said in a deep voice. Hee, these words can only fool a 3-year-old kid. Even if his eyes were sealed, Dustless could only see through the heart of a guard of the Hattori department. He said bluntly, you keep me just in case. The tone of the question was very affirmative. Dustless said, the reason why you keep me is to prevent Yawatch from killing the Spirit King and replacing him with me after he wakes up. This way, the whole world won't collapse. Hearing this, the old face of a guard of the Hattori department suddenly darkened. He did have such a plan. Fate is full of twists and turns and is full of unknowns. Once the Spirit King is killed, the 3 realms, Soul Society, the modern world, and Hueco Mundo, will collapse. Replacing him with Dustless can prevent such a disaster. In fact, it was a backup plan. Everyone looked at the guard of the Hattori department. Seeing the change in his expression, they knew that Dustless was telling the truth. These bastards are just getting caught in their own trap. They deserve to be killed by Yawatch. Dustless sneered in his heart. The Zero Squad was very loyal to the Spirit King, but they were also very cruel. The Spirit King's arms, legs, heart, and consciousness were all cut off from his body. Among Yawatch's personal guards, one was the Spirit King's left arm, and the other was the Spirit King's heart. According to Dustless's guess, Yawatch himself was very likely a part of the Spirit King, and so was Jugram. In a sense, the Spirit King's right arm was Yukitake Jushiru. Didn't you want to be the Spirit King? You should be thanking me. Seeing that his plan was exposed, the guard of the Hattori department admitted, the Spirit King is the symbol of protecting the world. Naturally, we can't lose him. It's normal to have a backup. You guys are so hypocritical. You talk about benevolence and morality every day, but have you ever been loyal to the Spirit King? Who cut off the Spirit King's limbs? You guys know very well. The Zero Squad is loyal to the Spirit King because he is the chisel of this world. That's why they respect him. But from what I see, you guys are using the Spirit King to maintain the balance of the world. It's no wonder that the Quincy hate you guys so much. The corner of Dustless's mouth curled into a mocking smile. He disdained to mock them. In this world, only the Zero Squad could come into contact with the Spirit King. Obviously, cutting off the Spirit King's limbs was related to them in countless ways. It was completely self-inflicted. In order to maintain the balance of the world, the Zero Squad cut off the Spirit King's limbs. In this way, the hatred between the Quincy and the Grim Reaper could be explained. Chapter 1091. One could survive a natural disaster, but one could not survive a self-inflicted disaster. Since the Spirit King's arms, legs, and heart were all chopped off, it was only natural for the Quincher led by Yawatch to view him as the Grim Reaper. Where should we lock this guy for now? He's too dangerous, and it's not suitable to keep him in the Spirit King Palace. Sword God Wang Yu said in a deep voice. He was fine before the fight, but after the fight, his self-esteem was shattered. They were not on the same level at all. Especially when Dustless's voice was light, he was not worried at all. Perhaps he deliberately let himself be captured and waited until he was in the Spirit King Palace to rebel and take advantage of the situation to attack the Spirit King. If that's the case, let's put him in the first team's quarters, and I'll watch over him personally. Head Captain Yamamoto said decisively, and there was a hint of dominance in his tone. The head captain was on the same level as Division Zero's first soldier and Kirin Temple's Tenshulu. There was no difference in status, and none of them dared to guarantee that they could severely injure Yamamoto in a 1v1. You'll come begging me sooner or later. Dustless was trapped in the chair, unable to move. Other than being able to speak, he could not even move his fingers. Super scientists like Sayaso Toshio and Shidoro Senjumaru were indeed powerful. We're all Grim Reapers. Although we've parted ways now, I might as well tell you an important piece of news for the sake of our former comrades. Within 10 years, Yawatch will wake up. The members of Division Zero were stunned, and they looked at head Captain Yamamoto in unison. I did seal him back then, but even Unohana Hakuryu, Unohana Retsu, didn't know about this. How did you know about it? Old Yamamoto's face fell. This was his biggest secret. Everyone thought that Yawatch was dead, but that was not the case. As a part of the Spirit King's body, Yawatch could not be killed. Once he was killed, the entire world would collapse. 1,000 years ago, in a helpless situation, he only took Yawatch's heartbeat, consciousness, and strength. In the end, Yawatch was completely sealed. My pupil technique can extract the memories of others. The last time I went to Hueco Mundo, that is, when I killed Ghost Yen Qing, I happened to meet two Quincy who attacked me. They both have the ability of Holy Word. I extracted their memories and learned that Yawatch will definitely wake up in 10 years. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your leisurely life, he. Dustless laughed sinisterly. Even though his eyes had been sealed, he could still vaguely see the ugly expressions on their faces. The most difficult enemy to deal with was an enemy like Yawatch. It was not difficult to defeat him, but because of his special status, he could not kill him. As for Sosuke Aizen, Dustless didn't mention it. Compared to someone like Yawatch, Sosuke Aizen was just a fledgling. Shinozaki Ichigo could deal with him. Of course, Dustless stole Isshin Shiba's wife, Kurosaki Shingo, so he might not even be able to be born. You don't have to worry about that. A soldier from the War Commander Division said coldly. Time flew, and 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Due to the Great Purge launched by Dustless, all the captains of Godei 13 were injured. Only Old Man Yamamoto was safe and sound. The rest of the captains were all heavily injured, and almost everyone was in a state of near death. Dustless himself was also handed over to Yamamoto. Unfortunately, he was sentenced to 100,000 years. When Sosuke Aizen failed, it was only 20,000 years. When it was Dustless's turn, it was several times longer, and he was permanently imprisoned in Abyss of Hell. Sure enough, I can't underestimate the Zero Squad. Those black technologies are really useful. In the dark Abyss of Hell, Dustless was surprised that he couldn't move his body. He wanted to use all his skills, but he couldn't control his body. It was as if all his limbs were cut off, and nothing was obedient. Only his head was left. Forget it, let's deal with the Hogyoku first. Thinking of the strange state of the Hogyoku, Dustless's face turned cold, and his majestic spiritual power directly invaded the Hogyoku. The world inside the Hogyoku was just like its appearance. The inside was a mysterious purple world. Dustless was floating in the sky. What a killjoy. I was looking forward to it. Floating in the sky, Dustless said uninterestedly. The scenery was extremely monotonous. There was only purple mist rolling around, and there were no other creatures. The whole world was dead silent. Master, that's not right. It's because the scenery is monotonous that it has a different kind of scenery. A girl in purple appeared out of thin air. Her hair was dancing in the wind, and her delicate face was very beautiful. However, Dustless wasn't interested at all. Instead, a cold light flashed in the corner of his mouth. His body disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of the Hogyoku's consciousness. Dustless looked indifferent, and his flashing fingers directly crushed her chest. Boom boom boom. The abdomen of the Hogyoku's consciousness was directly cut open by Dustless, and a hole the size of a human head appeared. It was extremely horrifying. Are you surprised? Seeing the Hogyoku's consciousness looking at him inconceivably, Dustless sneered, "Do you think I don't know anything? You should be something created by Urahara Kasuke. You transferred Ryatsu to me before, but it wasn't to help me at all. Instead, you wanted to disintegrate me from the inside. In other words, you wanted to explode me with Ryatsu. If it wasn't for the Jubi, I might have been finished. Urahara Kasuke, that bastard, is really vicious." Chapter 1092. Dustless sneered again and again. No wonder Urahara Kasuke gave him the Hogyoku so readily. This Hogyoku was a deadly poison. If it was Aizen Sosuke, he might have exploded. Who is Urahara Kasuke? I don't know him. Hogyoku's consciousness tried to deny it and argued with a red face, "I'm just the consciousness of Hogyoku. I don't know Urahara Kasuke, and I don't know who he is." Stubborn. Dustless sneered and retorted, "You don't have to deny it. No matter what the final outcome is, I will completely erase your consciousness. Hogyoku doesn't need consciousness. The only one it serves is me." Dustless said indifferently. This sentence sent Hogyoku's consciousness to hell. This seemingly harmless girl was actually extremely vicious. Every time his Ryatsu was exhausted, Hogyoku would automatically provide Ryatsu. The degree of violence was far beyond the limit that the Shinigami's body could withstand. Dustless's body was Jubi. Otherwise, he would have turned into a pile of blood mist and dyed Soul Society red. And the most important thing is, speaking of this, Wu Chen's tone sank slightly. He directly exposed her nature and said, "The extent of my understanding of the Hogyoku is more than your consciousness. Only when the host feels death, Hogyoku will prompt the host to evolve. Whether it was facing Yamamoto Captain or Team Zero, I didn't feel fear. Why would I evolve? It's nothing more than you seeing that I was suppressed at that time and tempted me to borrow your Ryatsu. It would be best if you could explode my body." Speaking of this, Dustless's eyes emitted a white light, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. He could be 100% sure that this so-called Hogyoku's consciousness had a problem, and she wanted him to die quickly. Moreover, even if it had nothing to do with Hogyoku's consciousness, Dustless would not hesitate to kill her. After all, no one could be at ease with an inexplicable thing in their body. "Master, I am sincere to you." Hogyoku's consciousness moved lightly and approached Dustless. Her posture was extremely ambiguous, and she almost fell into Dustless's arms. "Let go." The hoarse and bone-chilling voice was emotionless, like a machine that was cold and isolated from the world. The light body fragrance followed Hogyoku's consciousness into Dustless's nostrils. Although the taste was not bad, his face was still as cold as ever. Since Master is so heartless, the consciousness of the Hogyoku retracted her slender fingers, looked around Dustless and danced in a circle, circling to the back of Dustless. The tip of her fingers overflowed with countless sharp points. Then you can go to hell. Poochie. Dustless's body was penetrated by the sharp claws. The Hogyoku's consciousness was extremely ruthless. The 5 fingers sank deep into the brain and almost instantly took the life of a creature. Once the head was pierced, anyone would die without a doubt. Hogyoku's consciousness was dumbfounded. The strange touch made her somewhat overwhelmed. She did not hit Dustless at all. His whole body seemed to be transparent. Finally showing your true nature. I was very appreciative of your tearful acting. I thought you could come up with a gorgeous attack to kill my boring time. After all, I was sentenced to 100,000 years. Who would have thought that in the end, it would be such a crude attack? It's so disappointing. Turning his head and looking at the Hogyoku's consciousness with a smile, Dustless's fingertips emitted a light, and indifferently said, breaking down number 4, White Thunder. Poochie. The forehead of the Hogyoku's consciousness was immediately pierced by Dustless. Its body gradually became transparent and showed signs of disappearing at any time. Even if you kill me, it's useless. I can tell you clearly that I am indeed the consciousness of the Hogyoku. As you think, Urahara Kasuke did do something inside the Hogyoku. Originally, it was to prevent dealing with Aizen Sosuke. Who would have thought that it would be used on you in the end? The Hogyoku's consciousness screamed hysterically, you killed me as the consciousness of the Hogyoku, which means that you will forever lose the possibility of evolution. This is the result of your own actions. A man's words are kind when he is about to die. A bird's cry is sad when it is about to die. How can you be worse than a bird? After looking at the Hogyoku's consciousness in boredom, Dustless raised his hand and annihilated it. Breaking down number 54, Waste Flame. Poochie. The disc-shaped flame shattered the Hogyoku's consciousness, making it disappear forever between heaven and earth, without any breath. It doesn't matter whether I evolve or not, as long as you provide me with infinite Ryatsu. Dustless saw through it. You can't have your cake and eat it too. If he had to choose one of the two, he would rather have infinite Ryatsu. Rather than evolution, it was better to say that he turned from a normal human into a worm. After all, Aizen Sosuke was a lesson. Spiritual power came out of the Hogyoku world. Dustless tried to move his limbs and open his eyes, but found that he was still restricted forever. This damn black technology is really troublesome. Inside the dark hell, Dustless sighed with a headache. His body was completely out of control. Ah. Captain Dustless, it seems that you are very distressed. Messy footsteps sounded, followed by a voice. You injured all the Shinigami with overwhelming strength, the whole Soul Society is in an uproar. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly, and spread out his observation haki, carefully perceiving the traces of the visitors. After a few breaths, he understood who they were. Captain Ikamaru Jin and Captain Aizen. This is really a rare guest. You took such a big risk to see me. If the head captain finds out, it will be terrible. You two little bastards came at the right time. I was worried that it was too cold here. You should come and give me firewood immediately. After knowing that it was Ikamaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke who came, Dustless smiled, knowing that it was time for him to break out of prison. He didn't need to think to know what Aizen Sosuke came for. Chapter 1093. Looking at the two masters in front of him, Dustless never thought that Aizen and Ikamaru Jin were this cute. Although I can escape by using the truth-seeking jade and Kansusanu, it would cause too much of a commotion. It's better to hide behind the scenes. Dustless made up his mind. If he didn't want to expose himself, he could only rely on Aizen and Jin. In fact, the way to save Dustless was very simple. All he had to do was destroy his entire body. That way, the various items set up in his body would naturally be destroyed as well. The Jubi's physique would help Dustless condense his body. By then, all the items that bound his body would be broken. Yo, you two dogs actually came. Wuchen didn't even think about it, he directly cursed. This was the only way to provoke Aizen and Jin's anger and force them to kill him. Seriously, the head captain is getting more and more useless. He actually sent 2 pieces of trash over. If he wants to get useful information from me, he should at least send 2 death gods over. He actually sent 2 dogs to interrogate me. How dare he? Dustless completely ignored the presence of Sosuke Aizen and Jin Ikamaru. He was afraid that they couldn't hear him, so he deliberately raised his voice. Due to the unique structure of the infernal hell, in just a few seconds, profanities such as dog basket and garbage were echoing. Croak, 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 countless crows flew above Aizen and Jin's heads. Both of them walked over with dark faces. Aizen Sosuke was the most ferocious of them all. His left arm was chopped off by Dustless, and his chest was cut by Dustless a few days ago. He was almost killed by Dustless. Originally, when he came to see Dustless today, he was full of resentment. Now that he was called a dog basket and trash by Dustless, his heart was instantly filled with anger. Figure out who you are. I can kill you at any time now. Don't try to provoke me. Sosuke Aizen's murderous expression was particularly gloomy. Sosuke Aizen's entire body was covered in a layer of frost as he circled around Dustless. However, Dustless didn't appreciate his kindness. His next words made Sosuke Aizen vomit blood. With your dog basket. What kind of joke is this? You're just a defeated opponent. Killing trash like you would only dirty my hands. Dustless opened his mouth and cursed. He didn't have the demeanor of a former captain. He was even worse than a common hooligan. He mercilessly mocked, "You, Sosuke Aizen, Jin Ikamaru, and Higashi-sensei, you are a perfect trio of trash, a match made in heaven." Aizen Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin almost lost their balance and fell to the ground. "You bastard!" Sosuke Aizen's eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to fight back fiercely, but he was shocked to find that the only word he could think of was a bastard. Sosuke Aizen paid attention to his manners and never cursed in his life. He didn't know how to curse at all. Dustless pointed at his nose and scolded him. Sosuke Aizen didn't have anything to say back. He felt particularly aggrieved. His neck turned red and thick. "Jin, shut this crazy bastard up, or else." Humph. Sosuke Aizen didn't have any means to deal with such a rascal. He didn't want to kill Dustless for the time being. He still had many questions to ask, so he could only leave it to Jin. "Understood, Captain Aizen." Jin smiled and walked to Dustless's side. As soon as he stopped, he heard a harsh voice. "Captain Ikamaru Jin, do you know my 3 team members?" Dustless suddenly asked, his tone revealing a touch of pity. Jin was startled and looked at Aizen. Aizen nodded, indicating that there was no need to rush. Jin said, "Captain Dustless, what do you want to say? Do you want us to take care of your 3 teammates?" "Of course, but you must first answer my question with Captain Aizen." "No, no, no. You're wrong." Just as Jin's voice fell, Dustless pitifully said, "My 3 team members are all beautiful young ladies. I'm not young anymore, but I haven't even tasted a woman yet." Jin's expression stiffened. He sensed something was wrong. He looked at Aizen from the corner of his eyes and saw his unwavering gaze. He endured his scalp and asked, "Captain Dustless, what do you want? You even understand this, Captain Ikamaru Jin, are you a pig?" Wuchen continued to blabber, "My 3 beautiful team members, especially the blonde Lanju Matsumoto, I often dream of having sex with her. Originally, I planned to have them for myself after conquering Soul Society, and then have sex with them every night, leading a drunken life. Who would have thought that, you bastard." Without waiting for Dustless to finish, Ikamaru Jin interrupted him word by word. He was clenching his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. His entire body was filled with killing intent. His entire being was like 1,000-year-old ice, emitting a coldness that could destroy the world. Jin was breathing heavily, his lungs were about to explode. Dustless dared to talk about his childhood sweetheart in front of him. How could he bear it? "It seems like it's time." Using his observation hockey, Dustless felt the strangeness around him. The dark space around him was frozen. It was all caused by Aizen and Jin's murderous intent. Dustless was sure that once Aizen and Jin got the information they wanted, they would definitely kill him. At that time, Dustless would be able to escape the restriction of his body and use the Jubi's body to resurrect again. He deliberately added salt to Jin's and Aizen's wounds. Chapter 1094. Aizen and Ikamaru Jin both wanted to vomit blood. They've seen people with bad mouths, but this is the first time they've seen such a shameless person. This kind of person is extremely strong and difficult to deal with. Dustless is the best example. "Captain Aizen, this guy doesn't listen to reason or force. Let's teach him a lesson." Ikamaru Jin looked at Dustless ferociously. He suggested, "Let's give him a taste of pain. That way, he'll be able to speak better." Aizen and Ikamaru Jin don't know how to swear. Soul Society's people don't know how to swear. Only Dustless knows how to break the rules. "Did you hear that, Captain Dustless?" Aizen looked down at Dustless and asked. He wanted to talk to Dustless like a winner, but he didn't expect it to be like this. His patience and the lines he prepared were burned away. "What happened between you and Captain Yamamoto after I fainted?" Aizen felt aggrieved. He lost his left arm and felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He fainted because of Dustless during such an important occasion. Of course, it was no wonder that Aizen's mood had changed so much. He had always thought highly of himself, but he was defeated by Dustless. He couldn't even fight back. It was a huge blow to him. "So, you came for Team Zero." Wuchen was suddenly enlightened, but he still said casually, "What can I do if I don't tell you? You're just a wastrel. People like you will always be a mouse hiding in the dark crevices." Still disdainful of Sosuke Aizen, Dustless didn't put him in his eyes at all. His tone was full of contempt and disdain from head to toe. "You bastard," Aizen's veins bulged. He felt Dustless's tone was like talking to a worthless ant. "I was wrong to talk nonsense with you." Aizen looked at Jin. Jin immediately came over and untied the black bandage around Dustless's chest. It emitted a blue light. Aizen's angry eyes were replaced by fire. "So, you came for Hogyoku. I knew you were up to no good." Dustless thought for a moment and came up with a countermeasure. He sent a wisp of spiritual power into Hogyoku. "Urahara Kasuke. I still have to thank you for controlling Aizen in the same way. This is the best." Hogyoku's consciousness inspired Dustless. In the future, the spiritual power that Wuchen hid in the Hogyoku could disguise as the consciousness of the Hogyoku and trick Aizen Sosuke into serving him. This was also inspired by Urahara Kasuke, and Wuchen had to thank him. Puchi. Aizen didn't care about Dustless's life and directly tore off the Hogyoku embedded in Dustless's body. He shouted crazily, "You mortals don't deserve such a noble thing. The Hogyoku is mine, mine." Looking at the crazed Sosuke Aizen, Dustless had a smug look on his face. Perhaps Aizen himself didn't realize that he couldn't maintain his former wisdom when facing Dustless. It was completely because of the blow and the pressure. Jin, get rid of this guy. Aizen glanced at Dustless and excitedly took Dustless's Hogyoku and left. Killing him will only raise suspicions. Losing a captain alive will definitely cause a huge commotion. Ikamaru Jin's expression darkened as he hesitantly said. Dustless dared to flirt with Matsumoto Ranjaku in front of him. This touched Jin's bottom line. He would kill him if he could. It doesn't matter. Did you forget my ability? Aizen touched his eyes, and in the blink of an eye, he regained his former wisdom. He said calmly, that's a small matter. After killing him, I will use Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu to confuse everyone. Understood, Captain Aizen. Jin promised and looked at Dustless with murderous eyes. Aizen nodded and looked deeply at Dustless. He said, farewell, Captain Dustless. This is the last time we meet. After that, Aizen disappeared into the dark space. Only his cold voice could be heard. Bankai, kamikaze gun. The sharp saber light came head-on and instantly obliterated Dustless. Inside the saber slit, a special venom overflowed and began to slowly erode Dustless's skin. You're the first person to enjoy my Bankai treatment. Even Sosuke Aizen doesn't know my true Bankai ability. Ikamaru Jin had a sly smile on his face, he was very proud and arrogant. Don't know. Don't be ridiculous. In his eyes, you are just a kid who hasn't grown up yet. Wu Chen sneered. At the same time, his body began to melt slowly. The cells in every part of his body were about to devour his whole body. Seeing this, Dustless didn't show any fear. Instead, he felt relieved. He had to thank Jin. You can slowly wait for your death, and enjoy the last moments of your life. Too lazy to waste his breath on a person who was about to die, Ikamaru Jin slowly left. Idiot. Seeing Jin leave, Dustless's new limbs began to condense. A new arm appeared, and it was different from before. It could move nimbly. Thanks to Silver Ikamaru destroying his body, Dustless was able to move. Chapter 1095. His uncontrollable limbs gradually regained movement. His legs and feet, as well as the spiritual pressure and chakra in his body, could be mobilized freely. In less than a blink of an eye, Wu Chen's body was reformed and restored to its original state. I'll lend you Hogyoku for a while. When you're no longer of any value. Humph. Dustless's face was filled with killing intent as he disappeared from Abyss. As for the corpse, he didn't need to worry about it. After all, Aizen Sosuke was using Kyoka Suigetsu to trick Soul Society, so he didn't need to worry about it. Inside the 4th Division's building. Ever since Dustless destroyed Soul Society with his destructive power, the 4th Division hadn't settled down at all. Recently, they had been immersed in a busy atmosphere. That guy should be fine, right? In the captain's office, Unohana Retsu couldn't be bothered to rest for a while. She couldn't help but think of Dustless's face as she muttered to herself anxiously. Before, Dustless told Unohana Retsu not to act rashly and to act as usual. Thus, she had been quietly waiting for Dustless's news. Something. What could happen to me? The space behind Unohana Retsu twisted and Dustless came out. He hugged Unohana Retsu's waist from behind and his little hand started moving around. Unohana Retsu was stunned and turned around. What entered her eyes was Dustless's eternal smile. How did you get out? Unohana Retsu rubbed her eyes. After confirming that it wasn't an illusion, she said in shock, you should have been injected with some special medicine by Shudora Thousandhand Maru and Saiso Tongsai. Your body shouldn't be able to move. Feeling the little hands moving around in her body, Uno Hanaretsu's face turned red and she glared at Dustless. Isn't this why you called me here? Although she was unhappy with the little hands moving around in her body, Uno Hanaretsu didn't stop them. I was suppressed. But Ikamaru Jin and Aizen Sosuke, those two idiots, wanted to release me. What could I do? Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. The item developed by Sayaso Tongsai and Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru was only used to restrict Dustless's body. Once the body is destroyed, it also means that Dustless will be liberated. This was all thanks to Sosuke Aizen and Jin Ikamaru. Where is your Hogyoku? Seeing the Hogyoku disappear from Dustless's chest, Uno Hanaretsu was shocked. Did Aizen Sosuke and Ikamaru Jin take it? Uno Hualai was quite worried, and a look of anxiety appeared on her face. She said in a low voice, your current identity is not suitable for you to travel around Soul Society. I will help you take back the Hogyoku. Hearing this, Dustless felt a surge of warmth in his heart as he pulled Uno Hua into his embrace. It doesn't matter. Aizen Sosuke likes Hogyoku so much, you might as well let him play with it for a few days. Dustless saw through the situation and smiled. Moreover, lending Hogyoku to Aizen Sosuke will give me interest. I can't ask for more than that. Dustless's face was filled with killing intent. My consciousness is inside the Hogyoku. During the time I lend it to Aizen Sosuke, I will disguise myself as the Hogyoku's consciousness and control Sosuke. My first goal is to control Sosuke Aizen and Quincy to start a war. Uno Huaretsu's eyes lit up. It would be best if she could use Sosuke Aizen to start a war with Quincy. However, she seemed to have thought of something and wrinkled her nose, speaking of which, Team Zero actually didn't execute you. If it were me, I would have erased your body and bones. Then you are really vicious, Retsu. Hearing this, Dustless smiled bitterly. He was speechless. This seemingly gentle woman was actually quite thorny. If he wasn't careful, he would be in a mess. After the Spirit King dies, the world will collapse. They keep me, in fact, it's equivalent to keeping a safety guarantee. If the Spirit King really unfortunately dies, then take me, this spare tire, as a replacement. Wu-Chin sneered again and again, his laughter was full of sarcasm. According to Dustless's guess, the people who cut off the Soul King's limbs were Team Zero. The reason was simple. The Soul King was built to stabilize the soul. To a certain extent, it was an amalgamation of souls. And the soul was what determined the spiritual pressure. Therefore, the Soul King couldn't have consciousness or move. Its existence was only symbolic. Once the Soul King gained consciousness, as an amalgamation of souls, it would mean that no one in the world could be its opponent. This was the real reason why Yawatch was so desperate to devour the Soul King. Where do you plan to go now? Changing the topic, Uno Hanaretsu suddenly asked, Soul Society is no longer suitable for you. Hearing this, Dustless lightly nodded. Now that he was a prisoner, it was naturally not suitable for him to appear in Soul Society. The only places that could accommodate him were the modern world and Hueco Mundo. Hueco Mundo was Sosuke Aizen's territory. Without a doubt, there was only one place he could go, the modern world. Soon, I will leave Soul Society and go to the modern world. It might be a few years before we meet again. Retsu, before that, there is an extremely important matter that needs to be done. Dustless's frivolous expression disappeared as he said in a serious tone. Say it. Uno Hanaretsu solemnly nodded. She had never been this serious before. I am about to leave Soul Society. Of course, I need to do some paw-paw activities. Otherwise, I will never have the chance to be with you again. Uno Hanaretsu's pretty face twitched. She almost lost her balance and fell. Chapter 1096. Uno Hanaretsu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at Dustless. She didn't expect him to be so serious about something like this. There's no need to be so shocked. No matter how important it is, it's nothing compared to this. It's just a small matter that isn't even worth mentioning. Dustless said as if this was how it should be. Then, his hands became even more restless as he helped Uno Hanaretsu take off her clothes. Her snow-white skin was exposed to the air as his hand started to tease Uno Hanaretsu. You bastard. Uno Hanaretsu's face turned red as her breathing quickened. Her face was red, and it was very seductive. Wait, I still have something to ask you. Uno Hanaretsu grabbed onto Dustless's hands and said with a firm tone. The creation of humans is beneficial to the entire universe. Dustless complained. But in the end, he took his hands back out of boredom. It was quite painful. He had been in Soul Society for almost a year, and he still hadn't enjoyed the taste of a woman. Speaking of which, why did you save the two Quincher that day? Recalling Ikemura Jin and Mayuri's report, Uno Hanaretsu said, Captain Ikemura Jin and Captain Mayuri accused you of saving the two Quincher. Quincher? Are you talking about Guardies and Bombay Idea? Two beautiful figures appeared in Dustless's mind. He couldn't help but imagine the scene between the two, and he couldn't help but sob. My Dao heart isn't stable. I've been having sex for no reason these days. Worms have invaded my brain. Dustless shook his head and smiled bitterly. He frowned and said, they were my spies, hiding in Wandenrake to spy on Yawatch. Who knew that they would be exposed? Dustless calmed down as he recalled the Quincher incident. He said, maybe it was Aizen and Jugram working together. They purposely threw them into Soul Society to bait me. In the end, just like what you saw, I did save them. Uno Hanaretsu nodded slightly. She had also guessed it. Her face suddenly turned cold. Aizen Sosuke is setting himself on fire. Quincy is unimaginably terrifying. Sooner or later, he will be devoured along with his bones. Ha! You don't have to worry about that. Aizen is ambitious, and he won't submit to anyone. When the time comes, I'll pretend to be Hogyoku's consciousness and provoke them. Dustless sneered with his eyes glowing red. There was a saying that a mountain could not hold two tigers. Aizen Sosuke wanted to become a god and become one of the top figures in the world. This way, he was destined to clash with Annihilation's ideals. There was only one god in Quincy's heart, Yawatch. In fact, just as Dustless thought, Jugram and Aizen really did have a conflict, and the situation was extremely hot. We are only in the temporary stage of cooperation. I don't need to listen to your orders. Be clear, I am not your subordinate. In Rukuin Street, there was a dead silence. There were no living creatures. Aizen Sosuke and Ikemura Jin were walking side by side. The person opposite them had golden hair and blue eyes. He was cold and emotionless. He was no different from a block of ice. This person was the current leader of Quincy, Jugram. I'm talking about a fair treaty. I helped you before, and now it's your turn to help us. Immediately destroy the Godai 13th Shinigami. Don't say you can't do it. The captains have all been heavily injured by that man. With your ability, you should be able to kill them easily. Jugram said coldly. His voice was soft and dignified, but there was an invisible order in his tone. Aizen Sosuke's face was filled with killing intent, and his ryatsu was fluctuating. He sneered, the so-called fair treaty is only effective against people of the same level as me. If I kill you now, do I still need to fulfill it? Aizen Sosuke was extremely calm. Facing Jugram, Aizen Sosuke was not afraid. Actually, he had long since gotten used to Jugram. He was very annoyed by Jugram, who was merely a lackey. Is that so? Hearing this, Jugram's expression didn't change. His emotionless face suddenly had a strange smile, and he threatened, "If I tell Seoul Society about the alliance between Quincy and Aizen Sosuke, what do you think will happen?" Aizen Sosuke narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous green light shot out from his eyes as he asked, "Are you threatening me? You want to force me to submit?" Jugram shook his head and said indifferently, "This isn't a threat. I'm just urging you to fulfill the terms of our cooperation. Since Annihilation has helped you, you must repay us. Otherwise, our cooperation will be voided, and you will also be punished." With that, Jugram casually waved his hand, and a black crack appeared. This was Quincy's shadow domain. Jugram stepped into it and disappeared. "Captain Aizen, how should we deal with these ambitious Quinces? Although we managed to get rid of Captain Wuchin with their help, it seems like we're in trouble now," Ikemaru Jin said in a distressed tone. Aizen Sosuke didn't say a word, he just quietly looked at the blue sphere in his hand, Hogyoku. His mind was wandering. What Aizen Sosuke didn't know was that the conversation between him and Jugram had been heard by Dustless. Chapter 1097. Dustless's mental power was inside the Hogyoku. Naturally, he could hear the conversation between Aizen and Jugram. It was hard not to know. TSK. I knew that Aizen and Jugram would have a conflict, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Dustless hugged Unohana Retsu as he muttered to himself, causing Unohana Retsu to roll her eyes. Especially when she saw Dustless's evil smile, Unohana Retsu knew that he was up to no good. Looking around, there were clothes all over the floor in the captain's office. There was no lack of women's private clothes. Without a doubt, they were all Unohana Retsu's. After coaxing, cheating, and signing many unfair contracts, Dustless finally plucked Unohana Retsu, this rose with thorns. Fortunately, after taking away her most important thing, he didn't get hurt. If that old head captain knew that we were doing this in the captain's office, I wonder if he would vomit blood. Dustless smiled as he thought of the strict and rigid Yamamoto. I don't know. Unohana Retsu shook her head and smiled, but he would definitely be so angry that his face would turn black. Dustless nodded. Unohana Retsu had already started putting on her clothes. However, there were tears everywhere and there were blood stains on the bed. Without a doubt, it was Unohana Retsu's. Looking at Unohana Retsu with joy, Dustless felt a sense of accomplishment. He was very happy to have taken the virginity of a 1,000-year-old woman. He even forgot about the conversation he heard through the Hogyoku. Hurry up and put on your clothes. Unohana Retsu picked up the jacket on the table and threw it at Dustless. Her face was burning hot. Just as she was about to put on the captain's haori, she remembered that her haori was torn to pieces by the hungry Dustless. Even her underwear was riddled with holes. Don't change your clothes. Just wear this. It's cool and such a hot day. Seeing Unohana Retsu walking towards the closet, Dustless quickly pulled her over. Cool air. Unohana Lai's forehead darkened. Her jade-like hands reached towards Dustless's waist and twisted 360 degrees. How do you expect me to go out in this? Stop it, it hurts. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dustless pecked Unohana Lai's face with lightning speed and said seriously, you don't understand. This is proof of love. Unohana looked at Dustless speechlessly. She felt helpless and suddenly asked, you said that Jugram and Sosuke Aizen had a conflict. What's going on? Dustless did not hide anything and told her the truth. Now that he had a relationship with Unohana, he had completely tied her to his chariot. I see. After a while, after hearing Dustless's explanation, Unohana Retsu analyzed wisely, I know that Jugram. He was Yawacha's subordinate 1,000 years ago. Dustless declined to comment. Jugram's age was indeed above 1,000 years old. When he was very young, he began to follow Urukbok to conquer the world. This is a good opportunity. We can definitely sow discord between Sosuke Aizen and Jugram. Unohana Retsu analyzed carefully and said, like a female strategist, Aizen views Hogyoku as more important than his own life. We can definitely use this as a breakthrough. You're really a sinister woman. Dustless pretended to be afraid. If I abandon you one day, you'll definitely kill me. Including this world, Dustless had already experienced 3 worlds. He was an old fox among old foxes. Naturally, he understood what Unohana Retsu meant. Disguise as Quincy and steal the Hogyoku. At that time, Sosuke Aizen would definitely go crazy. But I don't have any Quincy. Candice and Bambiita have already been exposed. If we want to frame Jugram and cause a conflict between him and Sosuke Aizen, we need a Quincy that can use Holy Script. Also, it has to be someone from Yawacha's camp. Dustless felt a headache coming on. Sosuke Aizen's intelligence was unquestionable. Jugram was also an old monster who had lived for 1,000 years. Neither of them was easy to deal with. Oh right, Captain Nia has a lot of Quincy. Unohana Retsu had a flash of inspiration and said. Mayuri. Hearing that, Wu Chen was incomparably conflicted. Could the thing in Nirvana cocoon be human? Even a normal person would be crippled by him. Dustless did not even need to think about it. The people from the 12th Division would definitely be as perverted as Mayuri. There's also her. Suddenly, he slapped his forehead, and a slender and elegant girl appeared in his mind, Kurosaki Makino. She was the mother of the future main character Kurosaki Ichigo. However, she was already taken away by Dustless and Isshin Shiba was a bachelor. It was still a mystery whether Kurosaki Ichigo could be born. Although Kurosaki Mako did not have the ability to use Holy Script, she might be able to fake it. Her. Don't tell me you're talking about the 2 Quincy called Candice and Bambiita. Looking at Dustless, Unohana Retsu said in a strange tone, I heard that they are both hot girls. They're very pretty. Ha! Hearing this, Dustless was stunned, and then he argued with a flushed face, I'm not that kind of pervert. I have a bottom line when I do things. Do you think I'm that kind of person? No, you don't. Unohana Retsu thought for a while and then remembered what Dustless did just now. You weren't before, but I believe you now. Dustless was petrified. He looked at Unohana Retsu who had a faint smile on her face. He could not show any weakness at this time. He did not hesitate to pounce on Unohana Retsu. Chapter 1098. Time flew by, and it was already the morning of the next day. Unohana Retsu was tortured by Dustless to the point that she didn't even have the strength to walk. She barely managed to walk out of the 4th Division at noon. Her walking posture was also very strange, swaying left and right. Unohana Retsu wanted to cry but had no tears. This was all thanks to Dustless. That enemy. Unohana Retsu sighed. Unohana sighed and left the 4th Division. She still needed to attend the captain's meeting and help Dustless monitor Aizen Sosuke's movements. Today, the people are really happy. In the sky above Kangzucho, there was a violent distortion in the sky, and a white light appeared. An out-of-tune tune came out from it, and then a figure jumped out. The figure that came out of the crossing gate was Dustless, and his face was full of smiles. After picking Unohana Retsu, his heart was very comfortable and light. It's really not easy to find a person in a sea of people. Dustless said with annoyance. She didn't have a special way to contact Kurosaki. Although I don't want to expose my tracks, there's nothing I can do now. The silent Ryatsu in his body erupted and swept across the entire Kangzucho. In the blink of an eye, it spread like a stormy sea. It attracted a lot of people who were secretly watching. Bastard, releasing Ryatsu in such a big way, he's too arrogant. In an abandoned warehouse, there were sounds of dissatisfaction and indignation. The person who shouted was Ryori, the leader of the Masked Legion. Although they were dissatisfied, the Masquerade Legion wisely chose to remain silent. This abnormal Ryatsu content and density exceeded all of them. If they provoked it, they would definitely be crushed. Kisuke, is it really okay for us to turn a deaf ear to this? In Urahara Kisuke's shop, a black cat could actually speak. Don't worry, it shouldn't be directed at us. Urahara Kisuke drank tea casually, but his eyes were very heavy, and his heart was also stormy. This Ryatsu was so huge that it was beyond his imagination. It reached a level that could easily destroy him. Such a huge spiritual pressure. When did such a person appear in Soul Society? Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard, who had turned into a black cat, said in a cautious and puzzled tone, "This spiritual pressure is very similar to that of the captain who came to grab the Hogyoku last time. By the way, what's the name of that bastard?" Thinking of Dushless, Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard felt his hair standing on end. I think his name is Dushless. A while ago, I heard that he merged with the Hogyoku and killed all the captains in seconds. Even the head captain was not killed by him. In the end, Team Zero was alerted and they joined forces to seal him. Although it felt quite similar to Dustless's Ryatsu, Urahara Kisuke strongly denied it. This Ryatsu can't be his, he has been sealed. At that time, Urahara Kisuke took the opportunity to lurk in Soul Society and was fortunate enough to witness Dustless's peerless talent. I still remember clearly that Sosuke Aizen, who we regarded as our #1 enemy, was instantly killed by him. Recalling the situation that day, Urahara Kisuke couldn't believe it, and now he felt like he was dreaming. How is that possible? How can a powerful person like Sosuke Aizen be killed in seconds? Today is not April Fool's Day. Even though Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard, who had transformed into a black cat, did not seem to have any emotional changes, her voice, which was raised several times, was clearly stunned. Sosuke Aizen was a nightmare for them, but what did it mean that Dustless killed him in seconds? The two sides were completely different players in the same dimension. He must have used the power of the Hogyoku. Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard affirmed, full of doubts about Urahara Kisuke's words. Yi, do you think I'm joking? I also hope so, but I saw it with my own eyes. Urahara Kisuke sighed, and his eyes changed. If possible, he also hoped that what he experienced that day was a dream. Although he did use the Hogyoku at that time, he didn't completely use the power of the Hogyoku, and he showed invincible power. Urahara Kisuke continued to explain to Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard what had happened that day. Moreover, the most exaggerated thing is that after that guy fused with the Hogyoku, he completely stepped into the realm of God. He didn't even move, but he directly crushed the captains of the Godai 13 with his momentum. He alone killed all the Shinigami except for the captain, and almost all the members of the Soul Society were wiped out. In my opinion, if it wasn't for the Zero Squad, the captain might not have survived. Urahara Kisuke said seriously, and looked cautious, for fear that Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard would think that he was joking. Then why didn't the Zero Squad kill him? That kind of person is a scourge, it's better to kill him once and for all. Thinking of Dustless's cheap smile, Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard's Yi's face showed blue veins. I don't know, maybe because of some scruples, or maybe because they didn't have the ability to kill him. Urahara Kisuke also couldn't figure out the Zero Squad's intention. Fortunately, that guy was sealed. Yi of the Four Maple Courtyard was also relieved that they survived the disaster. After all, they offended Dushless, and they provoked an enemy who was dozens of times stronger than Sosuke Aizen. It was too terrifying. Ha! After a while, Dustless, who was floating in the sky, noticed that many shadows were coming, and his face suddenly became cold. The person I wanted to see didn't come, but you guys came. Chapter 1099. Looking helplessly at the figure floating in the sky, Dustless cursed his bad luck. Who are you? Idiot, do you even need to ask? He came out of the portal, so he must be a Grim Reaper. This guy looks unfamiliar. Is he a Grim Reaper sent by the Soul Society to the modern world to support us? Impossible. If that's the case, someone will definitely warn us. You have to understand that attacking without permission is a big problem. The Grim Reapers who were galloping over discussed animatedly. They were rather curious about Dustless who had appeared out of nowhere. All of them looked at him like curious babies. It doesn't matter if you don't know who I am. Anyway, you're going to die soon. Dustless glanced at them uninterestedly. His eyes began to change strangely, revealing a pair of strange eyes in the shape of a 5-pointed star. Amaterasu. Irregular black flames flashed in his eyes. The moment his voice fell, screams sounded. Damn it. What the hell is this? I can't even put it out. It hurts. The Grim Reapers roared in pain in groups. They were roasted by the Amaterasu's bloodthirsty flames, and some of them couldn't bear it and directly killed themselves. The silent fluctuation of spiritual particles attracted Dustless's attention. He looked to the north and saw a few strange figures. It's them. Dustless's eyes widened in surprise. A few familiar faces appeared in his eyes. Thousands of photons swept across his body and disappeared into the clear sky. Dustless couldn't be bothered to care about these Grim Reapers. They had already been swallowed by the Amaterasu, so he left them to fend for themselves. Anyway, their fates were already set. Ever since Candace and Bambietta were exposed, they had been hunted down endlessly. After all, the two of them knew too much. It was related to Habakkuk's secret, so Jugram had been sending people to hunt them down. Bastard, Tsangdu, don't be too complacent. Candace and Bambietta, who had been forced into a difficult situation, cursed at the same time. Their powers had been taken away, and their strength had now dropped to the level of vice captains. The middle-aged Quincy called Tsangdu was a member of the Sternritter Order. His ability was steel, codenamed Eye. He could turn any part of his body into steel. You guys actually betrayed His Majesty. I heard from Jugram that you have sided with the Death God, Tsangdu said with a cold expression. His words were filled with killing intent. Most of the people in Wandless Empire were loyal to Yawatch to the death. They revered him as if he was a god and would not tolerate any blasphemy. Your Majesty. He's just a shameless villain. Candace, who had a straightforward temperament, snorted disdainfully. She used to be like Tsangdu, but after following Dustless, she had undergone earth-shaking changes. That's right. That despicable bastard used us. Once he thought we were worthless, he would not hesitate to abandon us and kill us. That kind of person is not worthy of my loyalty. Bambietta replied in a disgusted tone. Her tone revealed her determination to die. It seems the two of you have been brainwashed by that death god. Tsangdu frowned and said, if that's the case, then goodbye. Your abilities have been extracted by Jugram. You have no chance of winning against me now. Tsangdu waved his hand and condensed a large holy bow. He pointed it at Candace and Bambietta coldly and said, seeing that you both once worked for His Majesty, I will leave your corpses intact. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After saying that, thousands of sharp arrows shot over. They could easily penetrate the steel skin of a great void, let alone Candace and Bambietta, whose strength had been reduced to that of a vice captain. The two girls had little awareness and closed their eyes. If there was one regret, it would be that they could not kill Yawatch with their own hands. 10,000 manifestations, heavens beckoning. A soft voice sounded, and the sharp arrows suddenly changed their trajectories. They actually took a detour around the spiritual drop swords that were shooting toward the two girls. They all strangely shot into the sky. No matter what, the two of them are still my allies. They also provided me with a lot of information. If you kill them right in front of me, where will I put my face? Dustless glanced at Sangdu calmly as he descended from the sky. You are not dead. Candace and Bambietta were surprised and looked at Dustless in shock. To be able to survive being surrounded by the entire Soul Society, even the current leader of Wanless Empire, Jugram, might not be able to do so. Not dead. Hearing this, Dustless's face darkened. He looked at the two girls speechlessly. It sounded like they wanted him to die quickly. Who are you? If you don't want to die, then get out of my way. No, since you have seen me, you must die, just like those people. Tsangdu coldly pointed at the two sides of the road. There were corpses everywhere, all of which were caused by him. Most of them were normal humans who had nothing to do with him, but they were still killed by him. Those who had seen the true face of Wanless Empire must die. Looks like we have the same idea. Dustless's cold face relaxed and revealed a smile. He laughed coldly and said, just like you said, you must die when you see me. Hearing this, Tsangdu was so angry that he laughed. Suddenly, a majestic spiritual pressure erupted and turned into a majestic aura that pounced on Dustless. He thought that Dustless would be directly pressed down, but who would have thought that with a contemptuous smile, he would end Tsangdu's life in an instant. Tao Breakers 90, Black Coffin. Countless cold black lights attacked, and Tsangdu, who did not feel anything, was directly surrounded. The merciless black lights tore him apart. Candace and Bambietta almost suffocated. Tsangdu was a true captain, but he was so worthless. He did not even have the chance to resist and was directly penetrated by the black coffin. Chapter 1100. Stills and Bambietta widened their eyes. They finally understood the fundamental reason why Dustless was able to break through from Soul Society. This overwhelming strength was enough to instantly kill a captain-level expert. No matter where he was, he could rest easy. Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and even Wanless Empire. There were only a handful of people in Wanless Empire who could kill a captain-level Grim Reaper with a wave of his hand. Still breathing. Your skin is quite thick. Even though he was riddled with holes, Tsangdu was surprisingly strong. He stood tall and stared coldly at Dustless. His bone-chilling gaze seemed to want to tear Dustless into pieces. His Majesty gave me the holy word, ability of steel. Of course, I won't be killed by you so easily. Tsangdu said stubbornly as his body shook. You have a sharp tongue. Yawatch would be laughing in the underworld if he had such a loyal subordinate like you. Hearing this, Candace said with disdain. Her words were full of mockery. Bambietta nodded in agreement. She looked at Dustless with eyes full of gratitude and obedience. If it weren't for Dustless, the two of them would have died. Humph. Tsangdu snorted and ignored Candace and Bambietta. He stared coldly at Dustless. Protecting the two of them means certain death. Going against the Wanless Empire is the same as digging your own grave. Tsangdu roared in a heart-wrenching manner. His angry voice lingered in the sky. Dustless turned a deaf ear to it. He stared at Tsangdu with pure pity and ridicule. These Quincy were all loyal to Yawatch, but their fates were tragic. They were either killed by the Grim Reaper or executed by Yawatch. The luckier ones ended up as nourishment for the saint. Therefore, they were destined to be tragic. You still have the strength to fight back. Sensing several sharp auras locking onto him, Dustless couldn't help but frown. He saw Tsang-Du condense a blue spirit bow in his hand again. "You're courting death." With a stern expression, Dustless's spiritual pressure surged again. Just as he was about to completely destroy Tsang-Du, a dazzling beam of light suddenly fell from the sky. The blazing light was so bright that it was impossible to open one's eyes. It covered Tsang-Du. "This is the thing that took away my and Bambietta's power," Candace exclaimed in shock. Her heart was filled with fear and hatred at the same time. It was this inexplicable thing that had snatched away the fruits of their hundreds of years of cultivation. "This can't be the saint, right?" Sensing the ancient and vicissitudes of life within the light pillar, Dustless muttered. "And Jazz Dustless." But when Yawatch fell to sleep to his power and Dustless, his power would two's power would power, power and's power, wood's power wood's power. After the exchange, Jugram would be able to obtain Yawatch's abilities. Even when Yawatch attacked Soul Society, he fell into a deep sleep and exchanged his power with Dustless. Because of this, Dustless temporarily gained the ability of omniscience and omnipotence. Maybe Dustless activated the saint. Dustless speculated. Although the hope was slim, it wasn't zero. "Ah! Damn it, what's going on? Why is my power gradually disappearing?" Tsang-Du, who was covered by the beam of light, screamed miserably. His painful and helpless voice came out of his mouth. He was surprised to find that his power was being absorbed by some mysterious beam of light. Not only that, his life force was also rapidly disappearing. "Although I don't know what's going on, this should be the saint." Looking at Tsang-Du, who was in great pain, Dustless was certain. Dustless's hopeful eyes were filled with envy. He was very envious of Yawatch's abnormal and heaven-defying abilities. Just the saint alone was extremely heaven-defying. It gave its blood to others. After the person who drank the host's blood died, everything would be given to Yawatch. The host's power, soul, and even memories would all belong to Yawatch. There was no need for any cultivation. All they needed to do was wait for the final reward. Ungrateful, despicable person. Why are you doing this to me? I didn't betray my subordinates. Tsang-Du roared miserably at the sky when he felt his limbs melting and his consciousness fading away. The tragic thing was that everyone ignored him and ignored him. Such a small pawn would always be a pawn. Or rather, the Sterncross Knights were just pawns. The only ones who could barely be considered as Yawatch's subordinates were his personal guards and Dustless. After a while, Tsang-Du's screams finally stopped. He disappeared with the wind, not even leaving behind a corpse. He was valiantly turned into ashes. "Sir, Candace and I swear to follow you until death. Together, we will suppress that evil Yawatch." At this moment, Bambietta and Candace knelt on one knee at the same time to show their loyalty. Their sonorous voices were filled with no regrets. They were determined to follow Dustless. Gulp. Due to the fact that both of them were kneeling on one knee, their heads were lowered quite a bit. Wuchen could see the soul-stirring cleavage, which made him embarrassed. "Get up first." Dustless was stunned for a moment before he understood their loyalty. Candace and Bambietta could only rely on him because no one in this world was willing to take them in. Whether it was the Grim Reaper, the Great Void, or Quincy, none of them would take them in. Therefore, they had no other choice but to completely follow Dustless. Otherwise, what awaited the two of them was only death. Jugram would definitely send out Quincy to hunt them down. Only by relying on the stronger Dustless could they have a chance of survival. These two are smart. They know how to use my strength. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.